and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the 2023 Skip Barber Challenge Trophy, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks rounds 21 and 22 as we head towards the conclusion of the season, and we are here in the New York State region, and in particular in the circuit of what is Watkins Glen International. Known more affectionately as the Glen, it is a circuit that is widely regarded as the mecca of motorsport in the United States of America. With its permanent circuit's history spanning 72 years, it is a circuit that has seen many a road racing class take to its tarmac. Arguably, all major road racing classes are raced here, and well, what a circuit to race at. With a very high average lap speed, heavily camber corners, and extended straights to boot, it is a circuit that keeps our drivers and spectators on edge throughout and continues to ask the question, who is the master or mistress of carrying speed from corner to corner and swinging the car through with momentum? For get it right and you'll find yourself staying one step ahead of the field. Get it wrong, however, and you'll find yourself under heavy pressure into the numerous corners. And with every corner being wide open with a braking zone or a preceding lift-off zone, it is a circuit where you can have battles over the entirety of the lap, and indeed, battles of plenty means there's plenty to look out for. But as we get ready to go racing today, this series brought to you by the Gone Skipping Racing crew and sponsored by Musical Money. Well, welcome to you all as you tune in, and you tune in live via the media platform on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com and search for TX11TX or Paul Walsh, you can tune in there. But as we get ready to go racing tonight, let's take you through your schedule. It's BST or UTC +1, Universal Coordinated Time +1, or British Summer Time, your timings. And in approximately what is 19 minutes time, we're making our way over into the qualifying session. 15 minutes in duration, with all our drivers out of the circuit vying to put in the fastest possible lap. But we reckon here it's all going to be about getting yourself on the front row rather than focused on being the pole sitter, as it is going to be Skippy's meets NASCAR in the series that aims to keep the Skippy alive, with the fact for the majority of the lap there's not going to be a need to brake the car. We may just simply see our drivers having to lift off to make the corners, and therefore they'll be in the tow of one another over the majority of each and every lap in both our races. Now, speaking of the races, we've got two of those on the schedule, with the round 21 sprint kicking off at approximately 8:45, and that'll be 20 minutes in duration, after which we'll take a brief 5-minute pause before returning, and when it's 9:10 for our round 22 feature race, 40 minutes in duration, double the duration compared to the sprint, with that all-important mandatory pit stop. In the commentary booth, we talked about TX11TX, or Paul Walsh earlier on. Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Brit of the Spit, and I'll be in the booth bringing you all the racing action today, and indeed for the entirety of the series, and what a series it has been so far. Indeed, we could not have asked for closer racing action, and everything is on the precipice today when it comes to the championship. But before we come on to recapping where the championship standings currently are for our drivers, let's take you through our calendar thus far and what still lies in wait as of the season finale next week. And as we can see, we started off all the way back on the 17th of March. Goodness me, it's crazy to think it's been 2.5 months since we kicked off, but rounds 1 and 2 saw us start off in the United States of America, and none other than the Charlotte Roval circuit, and there it was an absolute thriller from start to finish, with the qualifying that's been very different from how the races played out, and indeed mixed fortunes for many, and that's what Charlotte Roval delivered on, keeping our expectations completely subverted. Then in rounds 3 and 4, a week later, we made our way to the state of Florida from the state of North Carolina for the one and only Sebring International Raceway, and on the 24th of March we got to see close battle in action throughout the multitude of corners, and the bumpy road surface caught many a driver by surprise, particularly in the feature race. Then a week after that we made our way down under for the first time into the Oceania region, and in particular to Bathurst and Mount Panorama, depending on your preference of the nomenclature. In rounds 5 and 6 on the 31st of March it was all about conquering the mountain, and we got to see the rise in particular of Nathan Wade, albeit some brilliant battling from the likes of Enzo Cantor. Then in rounds 7 and 8 at Road Atlanta, we made our way back to US of A once again and to the state of Georgia for the Brazelton Town circuit, and in a roller coaster rider race in that Road Atlanta is the only circuit which it can deliver. We got to see plenty of battling, particularly through the sweeping corners and also through the S's, and 2-3 wides were commonplace, and how our drivers managed to survive it, we'll never know. Well, we do know it's down to their ultimate skill. Then going from the 7th of April to the 14th of April in rounds 9 and 10, we went to Summit Point Raceway in the state of Connecticut, and there we saw at the American circuit classic battling between our Skippy drives, everybody absolutely enjoying the racing from start to finish. Then in rounds 11 and 12, we made our way to conclude the first half of the season back down under to Australia for the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. There in southern Australia, we got to see our drivers put up brilliant fighting, and with the sweeping corners and elevation change to the Phillip Island, it got close, it got personal, and there were quite a few incidents, but all of our drivers able to settle the score score one another, and then going into the second half of the season, when there was no mid-season break, they immediately charged into the second half, and we kicked off at Japan in the Yokoyama circuit, and then in the remote Japanese territory, we saw in rounds 13 and 14 the classic circuit, lesser known by international standards these days, but well known to our skippy drivers, and they absolutely delivered on the 28th of April. Then rounds 15 and 16, we made our way to the North American continent once again, but not the US of A, but instead to Canada for the one and only hybrid street circuit known as the Circuit Jules Villeneuve, or Montreal as it's also referred to. And now we saw plenty of batting, and we really saw the rise in particular of Adam Miles and his continued streak of wins, which has followed us all the way through from Montreal up to today. And along the way on the 12th of May, we saw in rounds 17 and 18 all the drivers take on the venerable Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke, or the combined layout of the German circuit. And well, it was Jeff Randall in particular who sprung some surprises in the sprint race and a major blow in the feature race after leading for so long to get it all wrong in the opening stages and then fall away later on in the race. And for Randall, he was looking to bounce back. Now, as on the 12th of May and on the 19th of May, last time out, we made our way back to the United States of America, which is the country in which we're going to stay for the remainder of this season, and we kicked off a final venue triple header of what was firstly at Belle Isle in the state of Michigan in the city of Detroit for rounds 19 and 20. And Belle Isle last week absolutely splendid with the battle in action, and a street circuit that's no longer in use, with the circuit being relocated into downtown Detroit. But the Belle Isle circuit giving us a last hurrah, and indeed much like IndyCar in 2022, it's been a circuit that we'll sorely miss. But then on the 26th of May, as of today, it's Watkins Glen International for rounds 21 and 22. And after today, in the season finale next week, we'll put the date in your calendars, folks, already, 2nd of June. We bring it all to a close and the curtains down on rounds 23 and 24 at the Virginia International Raceway at none other than the state of Virginia. And well, it's a circuit that's fast flying and very aggressive on the brakes, and we look forward to seeing how our drivers take to the countryside circuit when they bring it all to a close. But there's still plenty of racing to come. Let's give a recap of those championship standings after what is 20 rounds. And we start off, of course, with the top 10, and we can see here Nathan Wade leads the way still by a margin that is gradually coming down to 156 points. The gap between him and Adam Miles sounds large and too large to be closed down, but we have to keep in mind these scores do not account for drop scores that will be applied at the end of the season, and therefore right now the pressure is on Adam Miles. For Miles to have an opportunity to take the championship away from Wade, to essentially steal it from him come the end of the season finale races next week, he's got to win every race all the way to the conclusion, and that means Miles cannot drop a single result. He may be able to drop bonus points for pole position and also fastest lap in the races, but he cannot afford to lose a single win, and therefore for Adam Miles, he's doing mission impossible right now, and it's looking mission probable given his run of wins. But will he be able to continue it, given the fact that we do have a field that's absolutely charging after that P3 slot, with Stefan Herman currently holding on to the position on 356 points, only 4 clear of Jeff Randall, who had a mixed set of results last time out, but Daniel Tuss by comparison now moving into P5 of 318 points and quickly closing down on the top 4. Gordon van den Bergen slips back to P6 on 303 points after a difficult set of performances last time out, with Ryan Jackson close behind them by 23 points adrift. Then it's Enzo Cantor, Neil Algarda and Roddy van der Meyden who complete your top 10. And we won't see Roddy van der Meyden attending tonight, unfortunately, due to personal circumstances. I do believe he's working, as we've been informed in the YouTube chat. But as we look from our top 10 for our 196-point driver of van der Meyden, we then come to 191 points in the form of Rasmus S. Vuri, who we have not seen for the last few rounds. We wish him well, but the Flying Finn dropping into P11 outside the top 10 for the first time this season, and he's 5 points clear of Christian Perez. Jack Atkinson in P13, 174 points. He's back in action tonight. We look forward to seeing how the Briton gets on. Only 1 point clear of Titus de Jong, with Juan Z. Rodriguez completing your top 15. Next, Remco Pleister, P16, only a further wins 18 points adrift to the top 15, and the battle between Titus de Jong and Rodriguez will definitely keep everyone's eyes peeled, and Pleister may be able to fit his way into that battle, with Mark Beckhouse, P17, a further 2 points behind. Next, Paul Smithhurst, Nick Von Roberts, and David J. Burns who complete your top 20. Outside the top 20, we then have Chris Wayne, P21, and we're expected to see him on circuit today, potentially joining midway through qualifying, and on 89 points, he's 6 clear of AJ Campbell, with JT Capina for 2 points by the P23. Stefan Krumholz and Terry McGrath complete your top 25, with Sebastian Holmichael on P26 and 67 points, and still continuing that run of form that we saw for the middle point of the season, albeit I believe he may not be in attendance today. Alanzioso at P27, ahead of Kevin Budgen with Anders S. Nielsen P29 there, and picking up a good set of points at Belle Isle. And long may that continue for Nielsen, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on here in the Watkins Glen circuit. And then Clark Williams completing your top 30. Outside the top 30 at P31, it's Marcel Brinchweiler picking up his first 24 points of the season as of the last round, and we look forward to seeing him back in full force in the remaining rounds, with Ludwig Sau only behind based on result countback. And it's Nigel Easy, Peter van der Noord, and Benjamin Harrison complete your top 35, with Ryan G. Walker, Mark Rayner, Tim Bertie, Dave Devine, and Arnold Chabanet completed the top 40. And outside the top 40, but not to be forgotten about, Dario Frattini, Wojciech Putusek, and Ollie Pimley. And there's your 43 drives in the standings, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we do have one newcomer to introduce tonight, and we'll come on to them in due course. But going from our standings then, let's introduce our circuit for today in a little bit more formality. It is none other than the Watkins Glen International, and in particular, our drives will be taken to the Classic Boot circuit. This circuit, steeped in history, originally opened up as a road racing course based on the streets around the village of Watkins Glen. It was made a permanent circuit in the year of 1956, and since then it has seen the arrival of two layouts. There is the Cup layout, which is the standard ring, which runs all the way from turn 1 up to turn 5 on this circuit diagram, and does not deviate off into the boot that you see at turn 6 through to 9, but instead our drives will carry all the way down to turns 9, 10, and then in towards 11 to complete the lap. And then we have what arrived later, known as the boot layout, which sees our drives take the deviation down into chute corner and into the boot complex of toe at turn number 7, hill at turn number 8, and then rising up through turn number 9. But either way you look at it, in either combination, this is a circuit with a very high average lap speed, with its extended straightaways being no exaggeration. And as our drives make the way on around here, in faster machines such as NASCAR-based machines, or alternatively GT3 class machines, with NASCAR coming to this circuit on a yearly basis, as does GT World America, just to name two of many a series. Indeed, back in the 70s and the 80s, I do believe Watkins Glen was the host to the American Grand Prix in Formula 1, so this circuit is highly decorated with the road racing series it has seen come to its shores, where it is a circuit which continues to keep our drivers on their heels in faster classes machine, with the fact we've got a variety of braking zones and also a variety of power zones. But when you apply it to the little skippies, the SBF 2000 machines, well, it's completely different in the fact most of the corners around here are going to be close to flat out, if not outright flat out, and that means that this is really skippies meets NASCAR, where our drivers having to stay full throttle for the majority of the lap and stay in pack racing, and the only time we're going to see our drivers really come off the throttle will be in the run through the boot complex of chute, toe, hill, and up towards turn number 9. But with that, of course, our drivers will need to look for commitment and look to position themselves well within the pack, on the inside for one corner to be on the outside of the next, and who's going to come away the victor? That'll be the question. But we must say thank you to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator, and with it the fantastic circuit maps that are also provided. And let's take you around for a lap of the circuit. So as our drivers make the way across the start-finish line up towards turn number 1, known as 90 right, given the fact it's a right-angled right-hand corner, and that makes it 90 degrees from the start-finish line, they'll come out of turn number 1 and charge their way up through the S's at turns 2, 3 and 4. Now it's all about a rise and seeing the road gradually narrow in terms of the racing line, but our drivers will be able to go too wide through there if they provide one other enough space, and as they make their way onto the first extended stretch, then head up towards turn number 5. Coming through the loop at turn number 5, they'll roll the car off and off camber corner and come down towards chute at turn number 6, at which point they make their way into the boot. This is where we see the camber of the road surface continue to increase. For as our drivers make their way out of chute corner, they'll head into toe, one of the most heavily camber corners that you'll see on the American circuit sphere, where our drivers coming through the right-hander at turn number 7 and charging down the back straight in towards turn number 8. Hill corner, a slight downhill braking zone, which will see our drivers roll the car through the right-hander and then uphill in towards turn number 9. Another one of our braking zones, albeit very late and uphill with a bumpy road surface as they change the road surfaces over, and as they emerge from the boot back onto the cup layout, then head down towards turn number 10, go through the left-hander flat out, and head up towards turn number 11 and lift into the right-hander to complete the lap and complete it all over again. But as we remind you of the rules for going racing this evening, in terms of setup, this is an open setup series, which means our drivers can bring any setup of their choosing, and the things they can adjust on their Skip Barber Formula 2000 machines include, but not limited to, the tyre pressures, the fuel, the brake balance, the spring perch offset, and the anti-roll bar, and the car fuel loads shall be restricted to 60% for all race day sessions. That's 60%, and the reason for that is, as you're going to see in the races shortly, it means we only have to have a pit stop in the feature race. Now, qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, which means in the 15-minute qualifying session, all of our drivers will be out on the circuit in full force together. And as we come on to the race rules, well, in general, the races shall commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of this series, with one faster pair being available to our drivers in each race. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate accumulate 17 or more instant points, and they shall be disqualified if they accumulate 25 instant points. Now, in the sprint race, there are no mandatory pit stop requirements. It's going to be no holds barred action from start to finish. But in the feature race, meanwhile, between lights out and checker flag, the grid shall firstly be set based on the results of the sprint race, and the top 10 finishing positions being inverted. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Well, it means the 10th place finisher in the sprint race, well, they'll start on pole for the purposes of the feature, and we work our way upwards through the finishing positions from the sprint race, and the winner of the sprint race will start P10 on the grid for the purposes of the feature. But meanwhile, the 11th place finishers and downwards in the sprint race, well, that's exactly where they'll start on the grid for the purposes of the feature. So you want to finish inside that top 10 as a minimum when you go racing in the sprint. But coming back to the faults of the feature, there's one mandatory pit stop in which drivers must take on fuel, but changing tyres is optional. But we never see our drivers change tyres because the tyres on these skipping machines last an eternity relative to the race durations that we're seeing. But that's enough rules and regulation, everything in between. I know what you're all here for, ladies and gentlemen. You're here for the racing. And as we head back to our live pictures, well, we do look to Adam Miles making his way on around. In fact, coming on through turn at number 5 currently, and the priority in the 85 machine with 5 minutes to go in this final practice session, keeping himself composed and knowing he has got a gargantuan task to deliver today. And when we caught up with him in the post-round interview after the race at Belle Isle last week, he did mention this one is going to be a little bit more harder to control compared to Belle Isle for the simple reason that he's not expected to be able to just break away with a couple of drives by himself from the pack. He's expecting the racing pack to stay together for pretty much the majority of both races, and then he'll have to try and break away on the final lap and put himself in the lead come at the checker flag out of the final corner. So for Miles, it is going to be tough, but where there's a will, there's a way, and the 85 driver, even if it doesn't work out today, and if he does end up seeing Nathan Wade take the championship with 2 rounds to spare, one thing that must be said about the Briton of Adam Miles is he has absolutely delivered history in this series by making, I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, 11 wins back-to-back, and that is going to be a record that's going to be very hard to beat. And what if he carries it on all the way to the end of the season, it will be 15 wins back-to-back, and such has been the pace that Miles has delivered day in, day out. But as he comes on through the final corner, meanwhile we look to Jeff Randall, the gone skipping racing driver from the 107 machine. And when I had the opportunity to catch up with him earlier before going into the car, he was saying to me about the fact he's been really looking forward to tonight, and he has been enjoying it racing around the circuit in the top split official races on iRacing. Keeping in mind, of course, there is the official Skip Barber Formula 2000 series, which many of these drivers you will see race in that, and I do believe it is broadcast the top split when it is run, and well, there was a broadcast for the Iberian top split earlier, which did see Jeff Randall and Adam Miles go toe-to-toe to the checker flag, and it was Randall who came out on top after going around the outside, and Miles come in the final corner. So they put plenty of practice in, and well, can Randall make that practice perfect today as he goes racing and potentially find himself back on the top step again. But as he heads up the hill, we do say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat, and if you are tuning in right now via the YouTube broadcast, don't be shy, feel free to say hi if you haven't already. Let us know how your week's gone, because it is Friday evening, of course, and that means the weekend is around the corner. And well, with the weekend, unless you're working at the weekend, and I do feel for you if you are, but if you're not, get yourself set, put your feet up, make sure you've got a nice beverage where it's a cool one because the summer is coming, alternatively a warm one because you fancy a cup of tea or a hot cup of cocoa. Either way, make sure you're set. Perhaps get some popcorn or a biscuit or 2 as well. You've earned it. And as Nathan Wade makes his way through turn at number 10, he'll feel as though he's earned this championship, and right now it's all hanging in the balance by a thread for Miles as Wade makes his way down the back straight here and gets himself comfortably set for another evening of racing. But speaking of saying hello to people in the chat, in particular we say hello to G4C there, the first person who did comment and mentioned the fact that Brody at Vandermaiden is working tonight, so we're not going to see him, which is very unfortunate. We also say hello there to Beaches Bruno Yank, who says, good afternoon, is it boot action time? Indeed it is, and we're not going to be giving the circuit the boot, I can tell you that. Instead, we're going to be looking forward to it in full force. We also say hello to Jeff Randall there, who says, good evening from the pit lane before he's jumped back in the car, and well, Jeff will be out on circuit, of course. We also say hello to Mid Race at 77, who says it's Draft Fest time, and indeed it is going to be, and I do believe that is Paul Smithhurst there in the YouTube chat for a brief moment, as we do look to Smithhurst making his way on around in the privateer machine from MOV Racing. And then we also They do have a new pair of drivers. In fact, we have two new drivers today, and one of them in the pit lane currently, and that is Klaus Biedermann, who we're not going to be able to introduce right now, but we will introduce in qualifying. And I believe we also do have Duca Vinstra, who is going to be joining us, and we will just get the overlay updated. This is a late announcement of the arrival of Vinstra, but whether they're late or early, all the better to have more drivers out of the circuit, and we're looking forward to seeing how both of them get on today. And whilst they're a bit late to the series, and therefore they're not going to be major championship contenders, this could of course be a sign of things to come, because they will be racing now to really settle themselves in on the pack and then look to potentially come back later on this year for a follow-up season of the Skip Barber Challenge Trophy, or indeed next year's racing season. And more on that come the end of next week's broadcast, where we tell you what's going to follow up after what's been an absolutely superb season of racing. But as we do get our overlay updated with the details of all of our drivers, and it looks so that everything is now comfortably set. We are a minute away from going into the qualifying session, and as we do see Vinstra leaving the pit lane here, the privateer making the way out in the number 38 car. Good luck to them on their debut. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to try and catch up with them in the build-up to tonight, but still they're heading on out there and making the way up towards turns 2, 3 and 4 into the S's. And whilst we're not able to catch an interview of our drivers before they go into the race, we will try and catch a quick chat with one of our drivers between the two races today as Vinstra powers his way on through. We are just now waiting 30 seconds or so. We say hello there to Rodino Maiden. That's Roddy van der Maiden, who says wanted to be there. Good luck all. And indeed, Roddy, we are missing seeing you out of the circuit, but we hope you're back with a bang for the season finale next week. But as Titus de Jong from RT Racing makes his way out to turn number 9, he'll be flying the Dutch flag high today in the absence of van der Maiden. And de Jong, of course, no stranger to battling hard with drives, and we have seen RT Racing really fighting for top 10 spots over the latter half of this season. But the checker flag is now out. It's time for us to go into qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. 15 minutes. Who's going to come out on top by the end of it? Let's find out. As we transition over into qualifying then, all the drivers will start to make their way immediately out the pit lane. It will be a quick charge here, but who's going to be the first driver out? And it looks like it'll be Jeff Randall. Now, as they all head on out, of course, with the lap time here being around the mark of 2 minutes or so when averaged out, what does this mean for the qualifying session? Well, firstly, it means we've got, oh, goodness me, and Enzo Cantor there before he's even able to get away. A bit of contact. I think that may have been with the car, where it definitely wasn't Ryan Jackson. We're not quite sure who the contact was with, but Cantor immediately having his rear right suspension crumpled and then to go back to the pits. But thankfully, that's only going to cost about 30 seconds of the qualifying session. Interrupting our own fault there. What can we expect in qualifying? Well, with the lap being quite extended in terms of its duration, we're going to see a limited number of qualifying laps. Keeping in mind that the 15-minute timer on this session is a timer that is strict. There is no overtime available. So when we see the clock strike 15 minutes, that's it. Qualifying is over. Our drivers must have completed their qualifying laps by the 15 minutes. If they're on one at that point, then it is aborted immediately and our drivers are taken back to the pit lane to go to the grid for the first race of the day. Now, with limited laps as well, we're also expecting this one to be a draft fest, as many of you may have referred to it in the YouTube chat, or a slipstream orientated qualifying session. While drivers will look to try and find themselves a partner as they make the way around, if not multiple drivers in front, and they'll try to use the toe of the cars in front in order to be able to gain extra speed on the straight. And as we see at Juan Rodriguez and also there Daniel Tufton, a bit of side-to-side weaving coming out of turn number 6 into 7. They're trying to get those tyre temperatures up nice and early. You can see everybody here latching onto the pack as they make their way up towards Hill Corner. And, well, we can see right now they're really working those tyres hard between Rodriguez and also Jackson behind the Shell V-Power machine. They all want that tyre temperature as soon as possible, and understandable as to why, because if they can get that temperature, then that first qualifying lap can be an absolute flyer. But do keep in mind as well, the longer they go into this qualifying session, the less fuel they're going to have in the car, albeit they're allowed to manipulate the fuel. But I would imagine that some drivers do make their way out there with quite a bit of a fuel tank initially in order to give themselves some weight in the car, and they'll gradually wear it down as tyre temperature also builds up, and it gives them the optimum car on approximately what will be the third hot lap in the session. But as they all make the way around, we're not going to quite jump on board just yet. We'll jump on board on the next flying lap when the drivers have got the tyres and brakes up to full temperature. As they charge their way down the start for the straight to go into the first flying lap, we have got a long pack of cars. In fact, we look to the blimp camera here and look to the front of the field, and at a distant camera shot, you'll see they'll get closer eventually. That is Jeff Randall at the front of the field, making his way up through the S's right now, and he's trying to bring everybody together as they come on through. And as they do, well, now the picture becomes a little bit more defined, albeit they look like ants at the moment, but that's the distance. But you can see the pack running together, and as we look down closer to the circuit, now we do have their Nathan Wade and Jeff Randall exchanging places in this pack as Randall taking to the inside as they make the way on down towards turn number 5. No bus stop chicane here. We're running without it. That would be the standard boot layout, but we're not seeing that today. We're seeing the classic boot layout and the bus stop chicane added in order to mix up the racing in faster classes of machinery over the years. And as they make the way out to turn number 5 and down towards turn number 6 via the chute. Meanwhile, one driver is yet to get a lap on the board in terms of his out lap. It's AJ Campbell, who's just making his way up through turn number 9. Well, it's been a little bit of time since we've seen AJ Campbell, but all the better for seeing the number 92 driver making his way around. But in a very lonely qualifying session, I wonder if Campbell may try to back himself off and into the pack later on in qualifying to give himself an opportunity. Perhaps he just wants to get a lap or two under his own steam on the board first, as their cold tyres causing the rear to slide open as he comes out to turn number 10. A bit of oversteer, more oversteer there for 11. I think Campbell needs to take a look at that setup at the moment because something's not quite right on that car. But meanwhile, as we look to the field making the way up towards turn number 9, this is the main portion of the field. Well, we can see it Wade ahead of Randall with what's there behind him, Smithhurst, with this top 3 at drives. And it's not a race right now, albeit you would be forgiven for thinking they're racing. No, they're just all trying to settle into position for this qualified session as they come towards the end of their first flying laps and making their way up towards turn at number 11. Will Wade be the first lap on the board. Meanwhile, behind we do see Daniel Tufts and Rodriguez nose to tail. They're the second pairing as they come towards the timeline and working together here. And it is a bit of a mutual. If you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours in terms of offering slipstream to one another. We'll expect the tries will invert, but Wade there sets the mark at 206.309. Rodriguez immediately raises the bar to a 206.170. And as they all come on around and in towards 90 right, well, Adam Miles goes fastest of everybody on a 205.978. That is 2 tenths faster than Rodriguez this time, but it's the first 5 of the session, and that does mean that Miles now has really set a marker to beat. But again, we've got a 10 minutes remaining here. We are expecting those fuel tanks to come down, and as they come down ever further, we're expecting more and more our drivers to push on. As they do head out towards West turn at number 4. We're not seeing that Veenstra go out onto the circuit at the moment. I do wonder whether Veenstra may be observing from the sidelines and deciding to start from the back, perhaps observing that it's going to be a race where qualifying is not too important. But meanwhile, we look from them to Klaus Biedermann, and here is the other debutant for today from Germany. He makes his way around in the number 48 car, and do give him a good welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way up towards turn number 6. And from catching up with Biedermann in the build-up to tonight, he's been hotly anticipating the race in here and looking forward to it. And he heard about it through the official iRacing at Skip Barber Formula Series Discord, as I'm to understand it, or at least the series conversations with other members of the Skip Barber Challenge Trophy community, and he decided he wanted to take part for the last couple of rounds of the season. And good on the man, I say, as he makes his way on down the back straight here and running behind what is there Ryan Jackson, and picking a good slipstream partner. Jackson, someone who could definitely be counted on to be quite fair in qualifying as they make the way through Hill Corner. But as they come on out and up towards West turn at number 9, we look back to Nathan Wade here, current championship leader, behind the draft of what is Randall and also Paul Smithhurst. And Wade deciding to back off a little bit as he comes into the final 2 corners, I think to give himself plenty of space to operate with as he goes on to a new flying lap. And we jump on board with Wade as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Watkins Glen International Circuit. So emerging from the final corner, not the smoothest exits from the apex there at turn number 11. That's going to cost him a 10th in the run down towards turn number 1, but he can make up for it with the extended toe distance as he breaks his way into turn number 1, into 90 right he goes, down to 3rd gear here, hits the apex at 77 miles an hour, uses all the run-up area. They're allowed to put 2 wheels beyond the exit curve, but more than that, they'll be punished for it. And as they make their way up the hill now through the S's, flat out all the way here from Wade, staying in 5th gear, top gear of the machine, building up the speed over still 107 miles an hour through turn number 3, now to 110, 111. You can see he's still building here as the toe becomes more and more poignant as he drafts up behind Smithhurst. Randall on the right hand side, Randall falling to the back of this bag, now heading down towards the turn number 5, Wade up to 125 miles an hour, 126, and Branty on the rev limiter as he now heads into the right hander. And as he comes through the outer loop corner here, drops the 4th gear, chucks the car in, dropping down to 91 miles an hour, quarter apex, and powering out now and in towards turn at number 6 via the chute. Now onto the brakes here, he's going to be dropping down a gear to 3rd and hitting the apex at 76 miles an hour before powering out, using the camber of the road there to gauge when he needs to return to the throttle as he heads up towards turn number 7 at toe. braking at the 100-yard board, coming down to third gear, dropping the car all the way down to 69 miles an hour, and now powering out, getting on the throttle nice. Now you can see the road camber there really twisting from what is an off-camber corner to a very heavily on-camber corner, and then he can just get the throttle down and power all the way down the back straight and then up towards hill, and this is where you need to brake a little bit earlier, braking at about 100 yards from the right-hander's apex down to third gear. You are allowed to run wide in the exit curve there, using all the runoff area as he heads up towards turn number 9. An unsighted left-hand apex there as he crests the ridge, commits to it, hits the apex nice and firmly in second gear. The slice corner on the circuit as well, now into the final 2 corners. Gets ready to chuck it into turn number 10, flat out through the left-hander in 4th gear. Now heading to turn number 11, won't quite be flat out here as he is going to drop some speed off the car, lifts off there, dropping all the way down to 83 miles an hour on apex, powering out, and that is a lap of Watkins Glen International's classic boot circuit as brought to you by Nathan Wade. And what's it going to be as he hits the timeline? Well, it was quite a fast lap, and it goes provisional pole there for Wade, a 2:05.371, and well, can anybody else find a way to strike back? That was a very impressive lap from Wade, and I think he picked the timing right for the slipstream, pretty much maximising, but immediately Miles says, well, whatever you can do, Mr. Wade, I can do better, and Miles goes pole now to 2:05.289, and well, that has been the story of the season since the midpoint, really, that whatever Wade's been able to do, Miles has just been able to find a 10th or 2 in order to get one step ahead as they make the way into the final third of this qualifying session. Well, 15 drivers out of circuit at the moment, all delivering laps. AJ Campbell in a bit of a lonely P15 down at Witt's turn number 7, next in the corner right now, but everybody else together there as they all try to work their way out the order. Now, are we seeing any outliers here in terms of the qualifying field? Perhaps one of the most noticeable ones that would be Remco Pleister. It's been some time since we've seen the number 117 machine from RT Racing all the way up there, but still Pleister absolutely delivering, and we are going to expect this field will be shuffled to a degree, given the fact there's a bigger focus on the slipstream in this qualifying session, as well as your own technique, and that does take you a long way, your own technique, to be fair, and it all comes down to your racecraft as well, in terms of picking the right time to be in the tire of another driver. But as Pleister makes his way through turn number 7, well, we've got a bit of an altercation there building between, I think, Klaus Biedermann and also Juan Rodriguez as they make their way up towards turn number 8, and as they head down the back straight, Daniel Tufts there peels out, but I think Biedermann's going to have to look up the inside. I think you'll feel he's been compromised here with Tufts repositioning quite late on in the day. Car off, that's Paul Smithers who's taking a trip to the grass. There might be a bit more of a story to that, but as they all come up the hill now, everybody trying to push on, and this is where things now start to get a little bit dicier in the late stages of the qualifying, because it's been quite calm in the opening 10 minutes. Everybody's been working mutually together, but now as time runs out, some drivers maybe feel as though they need to get a better lap in, and they need to reposition themselves in the pack when perhaps the drivers around them are expecting them to be at the front of the pack, and that's where we start to see these intricacies play out. Of course, everybody playing for their own games at the end of the day, as Jeff Randall moves to P3 on a 2:05.434, taking over from Paul Smithhurst down the second row. Jackson jumps up to P5 on a 2:05.658. Nobody else improving so far. Enzo Cantor down in P12, and Will Cantor not having a strong qualifying session, and he has, well, in fact, I say that, and he completely jumps up to P2 and blows my words out of the water with 2:05.348, and now he finds himself front row and only at 600ths of a miles his pole time. And could Cantor find a way to improve further? Well, to do so now, he's going to be up against it, given the fact that he is not leading in the pack of cars that he's running with, and I believe that is Neil Gardner. That's not Neil Gardner behind him. We will double check who that is running behind him very shortly. But as the drivers make their way around, here is Neil Gardner in the Marlboro mixed up livery machine as he comes down towards turn number 5. Long run to go, but as he heads on down towards the next zone, well, getting set here into the right-hander, and meanwhile coming towards the end of a lap very shortly, and still very lonely out there in the number 92 car for AJ Campbell, P15. He is practically 9/10 of a Chris Wayne's P14 time. I think Campbell here's got all the lap now down to a T on his lonesome, but the problem is he needs slipstream here to be able to improve that time further and get himself in the midfield. But I wonder if Campbell has just decided, you know what, I'm not going to really benefit from being further up the order, given the fact there's going to be so much of a focus on slipstream here when we go racing, and therefore Campbell's just enjoying the qualifying session and perhaps practicing running a race stint right now, given the fact it's 3/4 of the opening race of the day, and it wouldn't surprise me if Campbell's just decided to go for practice here and use that time to his advantage, because he's improved in 3 subsectors, and now on a 2:07.510, where he is at the grand total of what is 9/10 precisely of a Wayne. Chris Wayne here making his way up through turn at number 8. and 9 in the number 69 car, and well, by comparison to P14 there, well, it's almost 3/10 of a Neil Garner's P13 time. But again, for these guys, I think it doesn't matter too much in their mind. They'll be focusing on what they can do in the race. But we do have to keep in mind, of course, when we go racing, as Nathan Wade goes provisional pole on a 205.114. Now, can Miles respond here? Miles has gone fastest of everybody in the second half of the lap. I think it may be. No, it's not for Miles. And with that, Miles is going to lose out on pole position to Wade. And well, can anybody else spring a surprise as Miles gets off of the racing line there? And well, if so, it means that Wade has once again found a way to get one step ahead of Miles, much like what happened in Detroit last week. But they'll be starting on the front row together. Given the fact of all the drives now going on to another lap, they will not have time to finish this lap. And it's effectively a cool-down lap now, given that when the clock strikes 15 minutes, that'll be qualifying done and dusted. But I think here, Randall and Wade are both going to use this a little bit of an opportunity to practice some draft-assisted passing into turn number 5. Remco Pleister, meanwhile, a little bit further behind, running the toe of Daniel Tufts. But that is effectively how the qualifying order will stand, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be Wade on pole with Miles P2, Enzo Cantor P3, Jeff Randall P4, and it'll be Paul Smithhurst and Neil Garner on the third row of the grid, with Ryan Jackson and Titus de Jong on the fourth row, and Remco Pleister and Daniel Tufts complete your top 10 on the fifth row of the grid. And will Daniel Tufts always one to watch out for? He normally does start towards the bottom end of the top 10, but there's one thing you can count on with the number 34 driver, as he's being pursued by Remco Pleister here. He will find his way into the top 5 in the opening race. In the opening 5 minutes, he always becomes a threat to that podium position. And well, could we see Tufts bring home a podium here today in either of the races? My gut feeling says yes, there is a high possibility. But with time almost at an end now, AJ Campbell coming to the line. Can he improve even further? I don't think so this time around. He's only improved. In fact, he does improve their subsector 1 with all the secrets on a 207.373. So AJ Campbell will start P15, and if Vinstra's able to get onto the grid, he'll start P16 with no lap on the board. But that is qualifying all set and done, and with that, in 5 seconds, we'll see our drivers called back into the pit lane. As right now, I think Tufts is trying to chase the clock here to get to the line, but he won't have that opportunity to do so. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for round 21. So as our drivers make their way to the grid for our first race of the day, this is how they line up for the Watkins Glen Sprint. Nathan Wade takes pole position by 7.5 hundredths in the end over Jeff Randall, who starts P2. Adam Miles begins the race P3 there, with Enzo Cantor behind P4 for SOC Vimano Racing. The gone-skipping racing driver of Jeff Randall there jumping into P2 right in, and we do apologise for missing that. But behind them on the third row of the grid, it will be Paul Smithhurst and Neil Garner, the two privateers, and they'll be followed up by the pairing of what is Ryan Jackson and RT Racing's Titus de Jong. Remco Pleister starts P9 there for what is RT Racing, and it'll be Daniel Tufts who completes the top 10, the privateer. Following up the fifth row is the sixth row pairing of Jack Atkinson and Juan Rodriguez for Firebird Sim Racing, and then it will be on the final full row of the grid, I do believe, Klaus Biederman and Chris Wayne for Gone Skipping Racing, and then starting P15, last but not least, with Duco Veenstra not setting a lap time, and we're not sure he's going to be able to make it to the grid. It will be AJ Campbell for Artel Motorsport, but if Veenstra's able to make it to the grid after missing qualifying, then he will be the final driver on the grid, starting P16 of 16 drivers. But we'll have to wait and see, as we are now only what is 45 seconds away from green flag racing, and well, as all our drivers get themselves composed, we look back to the front of the field, and as we do, well, now it's Wade versus Randall, and behind them Miles and Cantor. Wade holds the lead into turn 1, but will it work out that way? It's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for the first race of the day here in the state of New York. And Nathan Wade gets a good start off the line as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And as they head in towards the braking zone here, rolling into the right-hander. It's a sedate start for many a driver, and will we start to see some fighting as they come out of the corner. Wade there uses all the runoff air and plenty more as they make their way up into the S's. Further behind Enzo Cantor and Adam Miles immediately going side by side through turns 2, 3, and onwards towards 4 they go. And the SRC Movano Racing here, driver just holding his inside line, keeping it close and personal as they make their way up towards turn number 5. Now long run they go, but this is where we start to see the slipstream assisted passing coming into effect, as everybody now trying to pick their places in the pack into lines and formations, and going up the inside there goes Cantor. Meanwhile behind him is Smithhurst, but Wade covers off the inside line. Jeff Randall on the outside here as they break their way down to turn number 5 for the first first time. It's going to be close, 3 wide on entry, but Cantor gets into the lead with Wade tucking on in, but Wade carries all the momentum as they flow and through. Now down towards turn number 6 they go via the chute, and as they do onto the brakes, well, the anchor's burning hot now as the temperature comes up. 2 wide are plenty here, but Cantor holds the lead as they come on through. Smith are side by side with Miles, and Miles and Wade will both be cognizant of the fact they do not want to get involved in an early altercation because it could see them out of the race and give an opportunity to their rival. But as they make the way through a toe corner at turn number 7, meanwhile further back than Neil Garner and Ryan Jackson sharing the space side by side coming out of the corner, and already Rodriguez and Atkinson battling for P8 there. Alongside him now goes Daniel Tufts. It's going to be 3 wide in the battle for P8 with Rodriguez a whole car length ahead almost, but as they come down to the brakes, it's going to be Tufts who takes the inside. And Atkinson finds himself squeezed there. Rodriguez forced wide, but then it'll be Atkinson who covers off the inside run behind Tufts. They head up the hill and in towards the left-hander turn number 9 they go, but as they clear the left-hander, looking back to the lead pack still as they roar the way out towards turn at number 10. And very close knit pack racing here, folks, as they make the way in towards the end of this lap and heading on through turn number 10. We see everybody now drifting through the corner. Cold tyres still in effect right now, so they'll have to be sensitive for the first time around. Second time we'll see them really attack turns 10 and 11, but coming out of the corner and down towards turn number 1 they go once again. Well, after 1 lap of racing, it's Enzo Canto who leads ahead of Wade P2, Miles P3 ahead of Randall, followed by Smith first in P4, next Jackson P6 ahead of Garner P7, Atkinson P8, Daniel Tuss P9 and Juan Rodriguez P10 with Best Rem complies for P11. But that's 1 lap complete, still plenty more on the cards, and as they roar the way up the hill this time around, well, we have had some more exchanges including Miles and Wade exchanging P2. As you can see now, the pair staying together with Miles the leader of them behind Cantor, and Cantor eager to bring home a victory in this series as he makes his way on down the straight up towards turn number 5. But of course, to win, he's got to be leading come the final corner on the final lap. It's not going to matter right now as they go 3 wide down the straight and as they head in towards the braking zone for turn number 5, where it's an absolutely beautiful day in Schuyler County in the state of New York. And I can tell you one thing, it's beautiful racing so far as it's 3 wide into the right hand here at turn number 5. Coming on down around, Jackson also trying to squeeze into the mix there further back with Wade being forced backwards. Randall on the inside to look to the outside here onto shoot corner, and as they come down and around through the corner, it's Ashna's in the loop if I remember correctly, where they come through the left-hander and up towards the toe, and as they head in towards turn number 7, you can see this top 7 pack right now furiously charging away from the field. Meanwhile further back, Juan Rodriguez, he's leading the second pack, that's all staying together, so we've got 2 racing packs separated by 1 second in all, and that's not a huge margin to say the least. If anything, Rodriguez may be able to bring the rest of the field back onto the back of the top 7 if he plays his cards right later on in this race, and we could see effectively 15 drives all vying for the win come the final lap. But as they make their way out to turn at number 8, well, right now it's all scramble at the front of the field and the same further back in the field as Carl Biederman, who we jump on board with here at the back in P15 with the number 48 driver. I think he's playing the long game here and not thinking about what could be now, but thinking about later on and focusing on running close behind the likes of Campbell and Wayne and just staying with them as they head towards the end of this lap. Now, of course, Biederman at the same time, he may have some exposure with racing with these drivers in the official Skippy's iRacing series, but he's not participating in this championship, so therefore still getting a feel for the format and also the competition. You may not know everybody here, and that's what happens when you're a newcomer. You do have to settle in despite what experience you have. But Biederman right now showing he's got the pace to stay with everybody as they make the way through 90 right for the 3rd time of asking. Going a little bit wide there, it's not going to matter too much. It will count as an off track, but he's got quite a few of those to play with. But as he makes his way up the hill, meanwhile, we look to those who made their way to the top of the hill right now, and it's Adam Miles who leads ahead of Cantor as they head on the round and down once again towards turn in number 5. Now charging on through, completing the first quarter of this race, and still plenty in the craft, and it's going to be 3 wide behind Miles as Miles in the old inside line. In fact, it's going to be 4 wide for a brief moment as the 3 of Cantor, Wade and Randall all come on through together in parallel, and as they make their way onto the brakes here for turn number 5, where it's going to be Cantor who defends, and Cantor already experimenting with defensive lines, I would say, as they make their way on out, and I think starting to get wary of the fact that at some point he is going to need to start to put the anchor in on this one. But as they come down through turn at number 6, we'll Wade there on the outside of Randall, and we'll both drivers there showing the inside and the outside hold relatively similar pace when you're 2 wide through the corners. But as they head up towards turn at number 7, Meanwhile, further behind, we have Atkinson here, who is being pushed along a little bit by Tufts. Tufts really now starting to get the momentum on, but they're falling further and further back from Rodriguez. And I think with the way they've been racing these guys, they've in fact taken time off of one another, and Neville Rodriguez has just been unable to break away and get into the top 8 pack. And now it's the top 8 versus the rest of the field as they make the way into turn number 8 there. And that was a sneaky snipe up the inside from Remco Pleiss. He tried to look for the move, couldn't quite find it as they come up towards turn number 9. But we've lost the driver in this back. I believe we have lost Chris Wayne. And in fact, we look back, and here is Chris Wayne right now. He's been involved in an incident of some description. And what exactly happened to the number 69 Gone Skipping Racing car? Well, as he made his way on down here towards turn number 8 on the outside and onto the brakes he went. Now, did he get it a bit wrong on the braking? He did. The brake seats there, the front left in particular, lock it up and causing the car to snap to the outside of the road, and well, not the way that Britain wanted it to go whatsoever. But indeed, these cars not having anti-lock braking systems, and therefore, when you do seize the brakes, it could cost you very dearly. And Chris Wayne falling out of the running and now finding himself at 7 seconds off of the next pack. But as we look from our P15 driver back up to the race leaders here, it's Enzo Canto still leads, going on to lap number 4, and was he charging his way now onto the straightaway down towards turn number 5. Cantor still in a comfortable position, albeit holding that inside line, and Cantor really making a point here of holding the inside whenever he ends up in a 2 or 3 wide scenario. I think what Cantor's trying to do, as we said, is fathom out where he's going to need to defend on that final lap, presuming he will have the lead as they make the way on to that final lap in the sprint, as they come charging on down through turn at number 5. You can see there the road camber, and our drivers really having to try and utilise it to their maximum. We jump on board with Nathan Wade, who finds himself right in the middle of all of this, and everybody's sliding in amongst one another right now. Great respectful racing from the 8 drivers in the lead pack, and it has to be said here, it's almost as if they have rehearsed this, albeit I can promise you this is not staged, they have not, but that is the knowledge they have of one another, and that's what happens when you've got so many drivers so familiar. They can run this close as Miles and Randall there, getting as close as you dare to dream, coming out of turn number 7. And as they make their way down the back stretch up towards turn number 8, Cantor again defending, and Cantor really trying to be firm with the position of the car as Wade thinks about looking up the inside. Miles covers him off, Randall goes deep, but Randall there goes very far and wide. But the thing is now it's going to be Wade with Jackson on his outside, Randall on the inside, and Wade has to lift off slightly. Smithhurst also tries to get into the fight for the simple reason, otherwise he would have lost his front wing, would have Wade, as they make their way out to turn number 9, and as they head on down towards turn number 10. Well, Miles there a bit of an oversteer moment. Meanwhile, Jackson and Randall went side by side to turn number 10, and Randall almost drifting sideways there, the same as Jackson as they came through. Well, they're starting to not hold anything back as they come out to the right hander at turn number 11. But notice how the top 2 now are starting to break away to a degree, albeit as Randall there goes high. It's going to be Jackson who goes low into turn number 1, using the relative parlance in NASCAR, and as they make their way in towards turn number 1, where it's going to be further behind Wade, who jumps back ahead of Smithers on the inside, coming through 90 right, and up the hill they go. But right now, Randall has a gap of what is there 6 tenths and 2 miles. It's not enough for Miles to break away, but I think Wade is going to worry the fact that he doesn't want to see too much fighting, and that's the problem now for Wade compared to Miles, is because he is in this pack and he's in the middle of it. Any battles that we do see may cause the pack to separate, and Wade does not want to be in the second half of that pack unless Miles is in there with him. But as they make the way down, meanwhile we look back to the second pack there, and it is getting very tasty between Atkinson, Tufts, and also Pleiss 3 wide, with behind them a further 3 wide in the form of De Jong, Campbell and Biederman. And as they make their way into turn number 8, turn number 5 I should say, in the battle for what is P at number 9, where it's going to be Tufts who holds the position as they make their way down towards turn number 6, and coming into the left hand now, through in a loop corner they go. Well, Wrinkle Pleiss there firmly on the inside of Biederman, and Campbell just watching on from behind as they head up towards turn number 7 once more. But these guys are all showing great racing room and respect to one another, and also starting to tease out further moves, and it is all mind games at this point. You're essentially playing an elongated game of chess on wheels, in the fact you've got to be thinking not about now, you've got to be thinking about the final lap of this race and where you need to be in the pack to try and make your run for the win in that respective pack come the very end. And that's exactly what we're seeing here between our drivers further down, as we see Atkinson there battling with Tufts, and Atkinson getting to grips with perhaps one of the most firmest drivers for battling there, the priority of Tufts, the Briton, making his way on the inside back up to P9 through turn number 9, and as he holds the position clear, it's going to be Atkinson who now finds himself falling backwards in terms of momentum to Remco Pleiss as they head in towards turn number 10. But through the left-hander they go, and as they do, both drivers now, Atkinson and Plyce will try and calm things down because they want Tufts to get a breakaway. But meanwhile, speaking of breakaways, well, Enzo Cantor was not able to break away after gaining a bit of momentum with Miles behind him, and in the end, Jackson has got himself along the inside of Wes Miles heading into turn one. They reached the halfway point of the race, still another 9 minutes to go. A little bit of a drift there from Jackson, but he keeps it together as they make the way out 90, right up through the S's they charge. But as we look back from the rear of Enzo Cantor's car, the Italian here charging up the hill, and as he does, Jackson right now will get closer and closer with the tow building more and more. But as they get ready heading in towards turn number 5, we are seeing the connectivity issues for Nathan Wade. Hopefully those are not a sign of something tragic to come in terms of potential retirement. But as our drivers head on down here in towards turn number 5, everyone will be looking at what's happening with Wade's car and thinking, where's he going to be when he rematerialises from the ether, or should he disappear? But it's going to be Cantor who defends the inside again versus Jackson, and Miles on the outside this time. Wade behind Miles to trying to stick with his rivals. They come down and through. And remember, Miles must win both races today in order to keep the championship battle alive to the very end of the season. Well, right now, Enzo Cantor firmly saying that he wants to win here in this race, and Miles having to figure this one out. He's not got long before that checkered flag does arrive. It's only 8 minutes away. Effectively, another 4 laps of racing here in the round at 21 sprint. And when we come to the end of it, will it be Miles on top? And if so, will the championship go another race, or will that be where the buck stops? But as they make the way down the back straightaway here, up towards turn number 8 into Hill Corner, will Randall now ahead of Miles on the inside there versus Jackson. Jackson squeezes him slightly to the apex, but gives him enough room to breathe. And as they come out to the right-hander and up the hill they go. We have had an instant further back between Remco Pleiss and Klaus Biedermann, and we will take a look back at that very shortly. I believe the two of them have come together, come at the start of this lap, but meanwhile coming towards the end of this lap, we can see now that second pack further behind as AJ Campbell gets it very wrong, almost going into the wall there on the exit at turn number 9, but catches it just in time for Artel Motorsport as the German driver. And well, that is a scare, and one he won't want to repeat anytime soon, we're certain of that. But meanwhile, speaking of scares, let's take a look back at what happened to Remco Pleiss and Klaus Biedermann. Was they made the way down onto this lap, into the turn 1 they went, and Pleiss they're very close and losing the rear of the car, and Biedermann just happened to be in the wrong place and the wrong time. The car's getting hooked together there on the suspension rods, and what we can see, they're losing the front wing for Biedermann, and that is very unfortunate for the pair. And well, Pleiss is just going around, and Biedermann coming into the scene of the instant under his own initiative. But as we ride on board here, this is what the number 48 driver from Germany would have seen. He would have seen that Pleiss had got it wrong and thought, okay, he's gone wide there, and no, there's nowhere he can go, and the car's getting hooked together, and that was very unfortunate. But as we look back to the live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, it's still plenty of racing to go. And we're speaking of racing, it's Daniel Tuss versus Jack Atkinson, with on the inside as Titus de Jong as they go 3 wide into turn number 5. De Jong trying to get ahead, but Tuss says no, and he parts the seas like Moses to keep the initiative. As they come down out of turn number 5 and in towards 6 with Daniel Tuss in contact there with Titus de Jong, and de Jong goes to the wall, and de Jong's race at RT Racing comes to an abrupt halt at a very short moment's notice. And will Tuss there a little bit of moment of contact with what was de Jong, and I don't think the Dutchman's going to be too pleased with that, but Tuss carries on, and well, even the smallest of contacts can be absolutely detrimental here in the racing. And well, we've seen it all go wrong in the second pack of cars, but what about the leaders? Well, here they are. There we've got the top 8 all still together. Everybody continues to up the tempo, with Jeff Randall now leading ahead of Enzo Cantor, and Randall right now in the position he wants to be in. But as they make the way through turn number 9, will he still be there come the final lap? And that checkered flag, as they flow and through, another 3 laps to go given the time available to us, and everything is definitely heating up here in what is a brilliant day in the state of New York. And as our drivers make the way in towards turn number 11, well, Randall's leading come the end of this, there's no question about it. Will he be leading come the end of the next one? As we look back from the rear of the Gone Skipping Racing 107 car, you can see Cantor by comparison gaining a bit of momentum, but in fact opting not to use the toe of Randall, but instead defending in the centre of the road relative side. I think that's to try and say to Jackson and Miles, look, I want you two to squad against one another rather than me. But Miles gets ahead of Jackson as Jackson leaves the door open on the inside and lets the car run wide. So interesting complexion now. I wonder if Cantor is starting to try and focus on holding on to P2 and get himself set for the charge on the final lap. As they make the way to the end of the S's and onwards towards the straightaway that heads up towards turn number 5. Here comes Miles, here comes Cantor, and Cantor's going to look to the middle of the road. Meanwhile, Miles will look further out to the outside with Randall holding the inside as firmly as he can to the white line. Tucks in, Jackson swings, and he catches the car just in time, as I think Jackson there being called to make Randall switch into the middle of the road. But as they make the way through, it's going to be a star formation here, with Randall finding himself right in the middle, and as they make the way through turn number 5, down they go, and the 5 drivers, they're all negotiating one another, as Miles meanwhile looks up the inside of Cantor for the lead into the inner loop corner, but will he be able to find here as they come down and around? Well, Paul Smithers right at the back of this group, and as we jump on board with the privateer, well, he's side by side with Neil Gardner, and it's going to be on the inside here of Gardner in towards turn number 7 at toe corner. Rodriguez has fallen to a second behind this. I think he's just watching and waiting in the wings as they continue to chop time off of one another, but as they power their way down the back stretch and up towards turn number 8 at Hill, you can see everybody now putting the cars in the middle of the road. We are definitely seeing some elbows out at this point, albeit no contact at the moment, proverbial elbows out only, but everybody trying to give themselves space now and trying to negotiate their position, as we can see now all moving onto the race line for turn number 9. There's only really one line through this corner. Smithers there almost losing the rear of the car on corner entry, such that bounce in the road, and around almost to the wall there, the rear right tyre just brushing the tyre barrier with the lightest of kisses, if you will. And as they come out of turn number 10 and up towards 11, well, this will be the end of lap 2 more to go here in this 20-minute sprint. It will mean that we're going to see a grand total of what is 10 laps completed by our drivers, and well, we've gone on to the penultimate lap very shortly. In fact, we go on to it now, and well, if you thought this lap is going to be intense, the next one is going to be even more intense, and the tension is rising as they come down through 90 right, and everybody now on a low fuel tank as well. The cars start to become very light to the touch. They become sketchy on rotation, and that means everybody now trying to push as much as they can. But will we see anybody fall by the wayside before they get into that final lap? Not that we wish anybody to fall off the circuit, but it can happen. And as they make the way onto the straightaway here, up towards turn number 5, well, Jackson peels the outside. Meanwhile, Miles puts himself in the middle of the road, going around the outside of Cantor. Randall decides to try and do a bit of rallycross down the inside. 2 wheels still on the asphalt, so it's all legal. And as they make the way down, they try to go forward for a brief moment, but Randall has to back off. Meanwhile, it's going to be Cantor on the inside, Jackson in the middle. Wade goes all the way around the outside here, and Wade being bold. I think he wants to be inside the top 2 come the end of this lap to give himself the opportunity. But as they make the way down towards turn number 5, we can see Rodriguez falling back into the top 7 pack for the time being, albeit Rodriguez may still be able to find his way back into this fight later on. But as they come out of turn number 6 and up towards 7, we do briefly look back to Atkinson versus Daniel Tubbs. This battle for P9 still going on as well. We'll keep you abreast of it, but our main focus will be on the leaders come the final lap. For the entirety of the lap, we can see Atkinson behind us right now, not closing up too much, but I think focusing on what comes on the 10th and final run around the circuit and race conditions here in the first race. But as we look back to the leaders, it's Jackson on the outside of Cantor. Cantor defends well into Hill corner. And as they come on out and up towards turn number 9, where it's going to be still a defense of Jackson outside to inside. That's exactly where he wants to be. Cantor trying to cut it back here, and this is what Cantor wants to do on the final lap from P2 rather than this current lap, as they make the way in towards turn number 10. And while Jackson leaves the door open and says to Cantor, you can have it if you want, I want to be P2 going on to the final lap, so that's exactly where I need to be to beat you. And as they make the way through turn number 11, meanwhile Adam Miles there looking around the outside of Wade, with the championship rivals P3, P4. But meanwhile we're going to one more lap of racing, ladies and gentlemen. 1 minute left to go here in the round 21 sprint. White flag is out, and as they charge their way into 90 right one last time, it is Enzo Cantor who leads, but will he still be leading come the checker flag? Or as they power their way up for the S's, this is where it's going to get very nip and tuck as we jump on board with Jeff Randall. Now making his way up the hill, he's got Neil Gardner and Paul Smithers behind him, but meanwhile you can see the top 4 in front, and they're all trying to settle down into where they want to be before they build the overspeed here on the straightaway. Now Randall looking to the outside. This is the first time we've seen him position himself on the wide line. And as they all build the overspeed, a bit of contact with Wade, and Wade and Randall come together, and Randall is launched over the top of Wade's car. They fall, and with that it means now it's a battle between the top 5, and this could keep the championship wide open as a result. But Miles needs to win this, and Cantor right now leading as he comes out of turn number 5, down towards 6 he goes into the braking zone here, and Cantor defends hard as Miles looks up the inside of Jackson, but Jackson in return will have the run potentially in towards toe corner. And as they make the way on through, well, Jackson's going all in on the inside here in Canter. If he can manage this corner and get it right, he may be given an opportunity here just to simply lead this race to the end, with Jackson and Miles both fighting hard. Well, Miles knows now he needs the ultimate run down this back stretch. He needs to get into lead, but he's going to be on the outside into turn 8 to carry it around the outside all the way to the inside of 9. Jackson looks up the inside, it's free wide, or is it? As Miles looks to the outside, Jackson's still behind. Canter in the middle of the road here, he defends well, but Miles has gone wide and goes up the hill on the inside into turn number 9. Now can Canter cut it back? He did so only a moment ago on the previous lap, but Miles just simply says, no, I know what's coming. They're side by side through turn number 9. Then towards 10 and 11, it's only 2 more corners to go. It's going to be side by side all the way to the end. Canter will be on the outside for 10, but if he keeps it there, he'll be on the inside for 11, and will Miles be able to respond? Jackson's behind there. It's going to be a battle between the top 2 to the checker flag, and as they make the way out, Canter's got a nose ahead, but will he still be ahead come the exit? There's contact between the two, but Miles gets ahead, and as they make the way on down, it's going to be Adam Miles who wins by only 300ths of a second ahead of Enzo Canter. Ryan Jackson P3, Neil Garner P4, Paul Smithers P5, Daniel Tuss P6, Jack Atkinson P7, and it will be AJ Camber who brings home P8 there for Arto Motorsport, with Chris Wayne P9, and then behind them it'll be Juan Rodriguez P10 as he comes out of the final corner, albeit with some damage to the car by the looks of things, so he's creeping towards the checker flag. Is Juan Rodriguez. I don't think he's going to get there in time before Nathan Wade takes the P10 off him, and Wade needs the P10. He will take it, and Wade makes it across with only 3 wheels of the car to take reverse grid pole for the feature race today. You couldn't make this up, with Juan Rodriguez P11 best of the rest, and then it'll be Klaus Biedermann who comes on through on his debut to take P12 as he comes across the timeline very shortly. And my goodness, what an ending to this race. And then it will very shortly be Titus de Jong who completes our finishing order of drivers. He'll come home P13 as he heads on out to the final corner. Does Titus de Jong for RT Racing after that unfortunate incident between himself and Biedermann early on. I mean, that was Pleister and Biedermann, I should say, but Titus de Jong crossed the line after the contact with, I think it was Tufts, in fact, and P13 for the number 90 car. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen, and well, we need a breather, but before we get that breather, let's take you through those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So after 20 minutes of racing in the round 21 sprint in the Musical Money Skip Barber Change Trophy for 2023, brought to you by the Gone Skipping Racing team here at Watkins Glen International today, Adam Miles taking the win by 200ths at the line as it's confirmed over Enzo Canter, with the SRC Movano Racing Drive being denied a win, but in return Adam Miles keeping the championship firmly alive. Ryan Jackson P3 only at a further 500ths off, with Neil Garner P4 there, and then Paul Smithers completing the top 5. A further 3.5 seconds behind Daniel Tufts P6, and a brilliant battle with Jack Atkinson beating his fellow countryman with the fellow Briton P7, and then AJ Campbell rounding off the run to P8 there for Artel Motorsport. Gone Skipping Racing's Chris Wayne P9 ahead of Nathan Wade who takes P10, and with that reverse grid pole for the purposes of the round 22 feature coming up shortly, and then best of the rest Juan Rodriguez for Firebird Sim Racing at P11. 5 seconds behind, an unfortunate end to his race, but looking forward to the next one, no doubt about it. Klaus Biedermann at P12 there, the privateer, and Titus de Jong rounding off the top 13, who finished the race on the lead lap for RT Racing. Finishing a lap down, Jeff Randall for Gone Skipping Racing after that unfortunate incident between himself and Nathan Wade on the final lap, only moments ago. And then Remco Pleister retiring 4 laps on the finish and will be classified as a finisher as he completed over half the race distance in P15. And then last but not least, they're not taking to the grid, Duco Veenstra P16 of 16 with 15 starters, and we did see effectively 15 finishers, 13 of them on the lead lap. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what a way to end the first race of the day. And I think as we look to Adam Miles, just gradually nursing his way on around the circuit right now and getting himself mentally set, I think the adrenaline levels could not be higher for the number 85 driver. And with that racing, well, we were going to think about potentially getting a mid-race interview with one of our drivers between now and when they go into the next race, but I think it's only fair to let all our drivers have the cool down time, because I can imagine the tension. You could cut it with a knife. That is how much tension there was and how fine it would be. And well, an unfortunate end to the race for both Jeff Randall and Nathan Wade, but meanwhile for Adam Miles, the way he wanted it to go and keeping it alive in the championship by 200ths at the line. Well, now for Miles, as he gets himself set to go racing up once again, he'll be thinking about one thing, which he's got to get from P10 into lead pack, stay with the pack. There's also a pit stop to be thrown into the mix. And so you may be wondering at this point, well, how exactly can we expect these pit stops to mix things up in the feature race? Well, the problem is, when you have a circuit where you've got pack-style racing, you do not want to fall out of a pack. You need to stay with cars. And in most races over the course of this season, when we've had the features, we've normally seen some drivers gamble on what is a very early pit stop with the undercut, and some go for the overcut when they pitted as late as possible. Daniel Tuss being one of the drivers who's normally gone for a later pit stop compared to the likes of Jeff Randall, who's normally coming, well, the very first. But here, if you're coming by yourself, you're going to come back out onto the circuit most likely by yourself, and therefore you won't have slipstream. And we have seen in qualifying the delta between a slipstream assisted lap and one without is approximately 1.5 seconds. Well, if you're losing, say, 1.5 seconds for 5 laps between when you make your pit stop versus your rival, then that is a total of 7.5 seconds you lose over the course of the race, and 7.5 seconds is going to be nigh impossible for you to recover if you can't find a slipstream partner. And that's why I suspect the strategy here today will be to pit when everybody else pits, or at least when a good number of drivers come into pits. We may see the field split on pit stops, but either way, as Neil Garner makes his way through turn number 9 and down towards 10 does the New Zealander, well, he'll be thinking about one thing and one thing only, and that is seeing if he can turn it around after what was a difficult end to the race for many, including Gardner, but be looking forward to the next one and seeing if he can bring home a podium as he as well comes into the pit lane. So all the drivers making the way into the pits. We are only 40 seconds away from going racing, and let us know what was your favourite moment of that first race in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. All our drivers are just queued up, some on the jacks then getting out of the cars, but we are only 30 seconds away from going into the 40-minute feature, and it will feel like it's a race building up to a dramatic crescendo. But I can tell you one thing, at any moment's notice, it could all kick off much like in the sprint. And as I do very quickly take a sip of water through fear of losing my voice before we do go racing, well, we're now only seconds away from heading to the grid once again. 40 minutes of racing, 3 races to go, and can Adam Miles make it another win, and with that keep the championship alive to go to Virginia? Well, let's find out. So the drivers make their way onto the grid for the second and final time today. This is how they line up for the round 22 feature. Nathan Wade takes pole position at the privateer, joined by Chris Wayne from Gone Skipping Racing. Behind them on the second row of the grid, it's AJ Campbell for Arto Motorsport and Jack Atkinson, the privateer. And then we have the pairing of Daniel Tufts, the privateer, and fellow privateer Paul Smithhurst completing the third row. On row number 4, it will be the partnering of what is Neil Garner, the privateer, and Ryan Jackson, his fellow privateer, followed up by then Enzo Cantor for SRC Movano Racing after what was his brilliant drive to second place ahead of the privateer. And your race winner from race 1 of today, Adam Miles, who starts P10. Outside the top 10 on the 6th row of the grid, best of the rest is Juan Rodriguez for Firebird Sim Racing, joined by Klaus Biedermann on his debut, of course, today. And then on the final full row of the grid, it will be the pairing of what is Titus de Jong for RT Racing and Jeff Randall for Gone Skipping Racing, with Randall having to battle his way through the field given that late retirement in the first race of the day. Now our final row of the grid, it will be Remco Pleister starting P15 for RT Racing, and if we do see Duco Veenstra be able to rejoin, then we will have 16 cars, but we're expecting it's 15 here, ladies and gentlemen, so it'll be Pleister who starts last but not least. But as they get ready to go once more, well, we look down to our drivers at the front of the field, and well, it is Nathan Wade there, who has an opportunity to turn things around from the front, but the challenge that is going to confront him, of course, is will it be as straightforward as it would seem? Well, as we reload the overlay and get the circuit map back in the top right corner of your screen, we are 30 seconds away, and I can see there as we say hello to Lucky for Rhino and Zaudi, both cheering on Nathan Wade and saying he's got this. Well, it'll be time to tell whether he can bring the championship home here. He's in the prime position, and all he needs to do is focus on letting the lead pack run with him and hope that meanwhile the pack further behind battle hard and perhaps Adam Miles cannot find his way into it. But we are only now 8 seconds away from the lights out sequence, ladies and gentlemen. Get yourself set. It's 40 minutes of racing here at Watkins Glen, and here are the lights. One red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day as Nathan Wade looks to get the best possible start down towards turn number 1. As he comes, he makes his way away. Meanwhile, Chris Wayne immediately jumping in behind, and he's got AJ Campbell looking on the inside here into 90 right. But as they clear the opening corner, everybody now starting to fall in line astern as they make their way in towards the S's, and this is where we start to see the entangling of the field as they head up the hill once more. But charging on through here, it's a sedate start for many with Ryan Jackson there on the outside of Cantor, inside now into turn number 3. As they get ready to head onto the straightaway for the first time of asking, well, everybody in a line right now, all trying to get as much of a tow as possible. But meanwhile, Adam Miles still P10. We've got Jeff Round up to P13 already, further back in the picture. By the front of the picture, it's going to be Wayne looking around the outside of what is Wade, with Atkinson also getting the mix. Atkinson looking up the inside. They're going to be 3 wide into turn number 5. Paul Smithhurst also sneaks in there and will decide to take the low line. And meanwhile, Chris Wayne being made to go further and further back as Tufts also comes on through. And as they make their way down towards turn number 5, Enzo Cantor sneaks in, and Cantor getting very close to the back of Wayne's car. Lets the car go straight on. The cold brakes there really catching out Cantor as he came on down through turn number 6 and letting the car roll straight in order to avoid contact with the back of Wayne's car. But everyone trying to figure themselves into this order, and I would imagine that quite a bit of fuel saving may go into the drivers here as they make the round around. So this could be quite a slow opening half of the race as everybody tries to siphon fuel. But as they make the way out to turn number 7, down the back straight they go, and with Juan Rodriguez not gaining, not losing any places since the start of this race, he stays in P11. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, Nathan Wade holding the outside there versus Smithhurst. And Wade doing everything he can in order to lead this race from the front. But already we can see the pack not breaking up at the moment. Everybody trying to stay in position. Randall looking on the inside there versus Rodriguez into turn number 9. Being made to go backwards and miles up into P11 now. But Rodriguez trying to dig in a little bit here in P10 as they come in towards turn number 10 and rolling on through. With Randall and Miles side by side together. I think Randall will most likely back out here and let Miles take the racing line into turn 11 because he won't want to lose the lead pack for his own racing aspirations here to finish B3 in the championship come the end. But you can see their 2 drivers always getting it wrong. That was AJ Campbell and Neil Garner behind as they make the way down towards turn number 1. It's going to get very frisky here. I think it's going to be 3, 4, 5 wide. It's going to be 5 wide almost down to turn number 1. Randall on the inside, he backs out. Meanwhile, AJ Campbell absolutely goes for it. Do or die attitude from the R-Tone Motorsport driver. And well, 3 wide into turn number 1. They all survive it. But with all that, they're going to lose a lot of time. And in fact, this pack is now starting to fall away from the leaders. And Miles has cleared it just about, albeit as they all come through the S's. Miles now in the slender tendrils of the slipstream of Juan Rodriguez. Rodriguez being 1.2 seconds of a Jackson in P6. Could this be the breakup of the field? Well, they're still battling here further back. Randall right now in the middle of the road with Wayne on his inside, his teammate. Meanwhile, on the outside, that's going to be Gardner and Campbell. Campbell backs off, but meanwhile, Randall holding on through. In fact, Randall was on the inside, not in the middle of the road. We should correct ourselves there. But the 2 GSR drivers swapping places, and as they come down through turn number 5, meanwhile, we look from them. Oh, goodness me, it's all gone wrong. And that's Klaus Biederman, AJ Campbell, and also what is everyone called Blyser coming together, and it's all gone wrong again for Wes Biederman and Blyser in particular, but AJ Campbell falling short as well. We will take a look back at that incident very shortly to figure out what exactly happened. But meanwhile, to our point in the fact, you can see here the top 6 right now trying to break away from the rest of the field, and in particular Wade in P6 will be literally yelling at the drivers in front, I would imagine, through his helmet to say to them, get a move on guys, stop fighting because we can drop Miles at this point and I can potentially take the championship here today. But as they make their way through turn at number 8, there's going to be more fighting. This may just cause them all to fall backwards towards Miles, and Miles will be grinning at this. In fact, Miles now within 8 attempts. I think Miles will be safely back into this pack on the next lap as they make their way towards turns 10 and 11. Well, 4 minutes of this race have been completed already. We're a 10th of the way there, but I can tell you one thing, it has been incredibly dramatic, and we're only 2 laps into a 40-minute spectacle here in the state of New York, and as they make the way through the right-hand return at number 11 to go on to lap number 3. With the battle at the front of the field, sees Enzo Cantor now leading after 2 laps ahead of Jack Atkinson P2. Paul Smithhurst P3 ahead of Daniel Tuss P4, who's just been past Ryan Jackson. Tuss down to P5 now, Nathan Wade P6, and then you have Adam Miles at P7, followed up by Juan Rodriguez P8, and then Jeff Randall and Titus Dion complete your top 10 with Neil Garner P11, Chris Wayne P12. They're in this pack as well. It's the top 12 that's running together, and then the rest of the field has fallen away after major incidents. And speaking of major incidents, we take a look back what happened between Renko Blyser, Klaus Biederman and AJ Campbell on lap number 2. Well, this was as they made the way out of turn number 5. Now, Pleister on the low line here, and as he came out the corner, Biederman losing the car there, as we saw briefly in the camera, and coming across the trajectory of Pleister and Campbell. And will we take another look back at that from Klaus Biederman's perspective, and was he made his way wide? We let the car go deeper and deeper, and in the end, just losing the rear, comes onto the bar for Pleister, and then AJ Campbell also getting caught, and well, unfortunate for the trio, but they all managed to survive it in terms of fact being able to get the cars back together, minus AJ Campbell. In fact, he has had to come to the pits for repair work. Very unfortunate for AJ Campbell, but it's unfortunate for the trio because that effectively puts them out of the race for the remainder. But as they all head up now through turn number 8 on the live pictures, well, turn number 7, in fact, towards number 8, we should say. Well, it is all blow on the drivers right now in terms of the fact everyone's going full steam ahead, and as they charge their way down the backstretch once again, well, we have got a long line of cars, but nobody right now really showing signs of wanting to fuel save necessarily. I think most of our drivers just focusing on the pace they can deliver right now, and then putting the fuel saving in come the 10th minute and onwards. And again, we are expecting all of our drivers together to come roaring into the pits in a single fell swoop, because nobody wants to fall out of the pack. But will anybody potentially come in early and try to encourage some drivers to come in with them by making it clear they're pitting? That may be a full process here as they come up towards the end of the lap. As Ryan Jackson in P5 follows Daniel Tuff still, and Daniel Tuff's continue to make headway as we jump on board with the privateer here, going on to another lap. Lap number 4 he goes, and in the number 34 car he is currently, well, it's 2 tenths over the back of Atkinson. And well, these two, their rivalry in race number 1 definitely translating over into this second race of the day, and both knowing there's an opportunity here to win this race. And I think the experience they've had with battling one another in race number 1 is going to be invaluable, because they'll know how much they'll push one another, and indeed they'll have that natural respect for one another now if it wasn't there before today. And as they make their way through turn number 4, you can see Smith first looking around the outside of Cantor, and Cantor there just staying on the inside as Tubbs picks up the triple toe, uses it to leapfrog his way into the lead. It's going to be Smith first on the low line on the inside. Cantor brings the car back into the middle halfway down the stretch, and as they head in towards turn number 5, Cantor now tucking it in, but Tufts holds the outside line, drifting the car through and catching the car just in time. Well, the rear coming loose there, and it's going to make it too wide of quarter X as they come down towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, Smith is trying to go high and around the outside. Jackson going to the inside here into turn number 6. That's going to give him a bit of merit coming into 7, albeit it's going to put him on the outside of the run. And as they make their way in towards toe corner, well, meanwhile, further behind Juan Rodriguez, he's still close behind what is there, Jeff Randall, with Adam Miles in P9 staying behind. And the problem is as well for both Miles and Wade, and they'll both have it on their minds, whilst they're in this pack, and they're clearly in the pack together, the further you are down the pack, it only takes 2 drivers in front to have an altercation or start battling hard, and then you normally find this pack will separate up. And we saw that in race number 1 midway through the race, where essentially the pack split off into 2. And could we see that again here, as we do see a little bit of negotiation between what is there, Randall, Miles and Gardner as they come through. In fact, it is going to be Randall up the inside of Rodriguez through turn number 9, so not too much of a negotiation between it. Doesn't look as though things settled down. Titus de Jong P11, Chris Wayne behind him, so these two still fighting for a top 10 finish here, with de Jong getting a better run out of 10 compared to Neil Gardner there. De Jong almost just simply straight lining out the corner and not worrying about the runoff errors. They come through to complete the lap, and as they power their way down towards turn number 1. Meanwhile, we look further back, and we've still got a little battle in the battle for P13 here between Remco Pleister, who was chasing after Biederman, as they make their way up through the final corner, and a tap to the wall there for Klaus Biederman. That's going to hurt the rear left suspension, there's no question about it. And well, that could be a very tricky situation to come back from, in the fact that suspension has been knocked, and therefore the wheels are out of alignment. He may now lose quite a bit of straight line speed. But I'm hearing in my ear there's been a major incident between Neil Garner and Juan Rodriguez into turn number 1, and well, that has upset the field quite considerably. As meanwhile, we look back to the leaders here. Jackson looking around the outside of what is Task, with Smithhurst behind him, and then we do have Cantor, Atkinson and Wade, with the rest of the field further back. And there has been a split in the field off camera. We will get you the story behind that very shortly, but as we do see the top 6 making their way through turn number 5, where it is now going to be the emphasis on Wayne, Miles and Randall to try and catch up. They'll have to work together if they want to make haste, but otherwise Wade might be starting to see the signs of the light at the end of the tunnel, which says that championship crown is going to be his if Miles cannot find a way to bring himself back into this bag. But again, let's not write off the championship battle just yet. We've still got 30 minutes of racing to go, and anything can happen here. We've seen that in the sprint already, and I think this feature is going to be no exception as Atkinson continues to follow what is their canter as they make their way down the back straight. But as they do, we get a replay of what exactly happened between our drivers, in particular Titus de Jong and Neil Garner and Juan Rodriguez as well. Well, this was in the run down towards turn number 1, and now as our cameraman focuses on Titus de Jong, well, Garner and de Jong coming together, but there was an incident in front of them, so they collected one another. But there's more to this than just the two of them coming together. And in fact, we take a look back from towards the front of the field. So this was Nathan Wade, who we're focusing on now. He came down into the corner. Oh, goodness me! And that was Jeff Randall coming in boiling hot under braking. And well, Juan Rodriguez being sent on a round, and the aftermath of the incident. But there's even more to it. So this time, we look at it from Rodriguez's perspective. And as he made his way down into the corner, so you'll see Randall here with a lockup, comes in too hot, taps the back of Wade. Rodriguez gets collected by the nose of what is Jeff Randall. That collapses the rear left suspension, so Rodriguez races is over. Effectively at that point, he has to be towed to the pits, and indeed that's exactly what you see happen there. So with that, it was two incidents all in the space of one corner. First, there was the incident between Randall and Wade, where Randall tapped the rear of Wade's car, and therefore Rodriguez came into the aftermath. And then separately, de Jong and Garner collected one another whilst trying to respond to what happened in front of them in turn number 1, and that's what caused it all to unfold. But with that now, we've got a top 6 running together. Nathan Wade trying to surge his way between all the drives, and he does so here. Enzo Cantor, meanwhile, going to the grass, brings himself back on using the runoff area there in the bus stop chicane in order to do so. With the SRC Bravado Racing driver, he's not holding anything back, but I think he's taking a lot of risks for this early on in the race as they make their way towards turn number 6. I think you'd argue he was forced off there. And either way right now, can he afford to make those incidents occur, or indeed be part of those incidents? That'll be the thing that needs to be on his mind, I reckon, as they make their way up towards turn number 7, because it's getting very frisky at the front of the field, and the more the push they one another around, then we're going to see drivers behind, including Adam Miles and Chris Wayne, close up. Now, Miles is 2.5 seconds off of this group. You can see him there in the rear of the camera, but if they continue to fight like this, then Miles is going to be much closer very quickly, as Cantor looking up the inside of Daniel Tufts. Tufts on the outside here. Jackson defending briefly to the inside into Hill corner. Well, as they make their way out to the corner now, Tufts tries to cut it back, but Cantor covers him off on corner exit. And as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 9, things stay as they are with Cantor now up into P3. Adam Miles further back. He has got Wayne for company, but Wayne not able to lead the pace with Miles. So therefore, Miles having to do it the hard way, which is essentially drag himself up towards the top 6. So they come through turn number 10. And well, for Miles, if he's able to pull this off, I can tell you one thing, then that is going to be an absolute drive of the season, given the fact he is right now battling against the current. And to put that in perspective, last lap from our race leader, Nathan Wade, as he comes to the timing line, as he makes his way on through, is a 206, well, in fact it's a 205.36 fastest lap of the race. Meanwhile, Adam Miles a 205.785, so Miles is lapping within 4 tenths away. He is pushing it to the utmost now. I would imagine he's saying there's no need for fuel saving anymore. I've got to do this the hard way, and that is simply put the lap time in. So Miles absolutely charging. 2.2 seconds off of Atkinson and Smithhurst. Or if he can get within 1.8 seconds, he will start to pick up a distant tow, and that tow will then enable him to get a bit closer. But meanwhile, we're looking to the front of the field here, and Nathan Wade falling to the inside as they make their way down the straightaway, and onwards towards turn number 5 they go. Meanwhile, Jackson there on the outside with Cantor between them. Enzo Cantor takes the lead of the race. Jackson moves into P2, way down to P3, but always changing position here, all for the sensible reason, which is to try and work together and use the tow of one another. And as they head in towards turn number 6, well, I can confirm that we have had a retirement for Neil Garner and Juan Rodriguez, given that the instant they experienced at turn 1 only laps to go, and therefore we've gone from 15 starters to now 13 runners as our drivers make their way up towards turn number 7 once again. Further behind, Titus de Jong and Klaus Biedermann have been battling, and so has Remco Bleiser, the RT Racing pair, now trying to work together, and Klaus Biedermann trying to keep himself in with this pairing in order to gain some momentum. They could factor their way back into the race yet, with Jeff Randall 2 seconds behind and trying to stay with them as they make their way into tow corner. So there's still some intricacies and still some opportunities for drivers to get back into this race, no doubt about it. But for Randall, much like with Adam Miles and Chris Wayne, he's going to have to use a lot of fuel here if he wants to catch up. And missing when it's there, the front portion of the front wing, indeed the nose cone of the car. And for Jeff Randall, that means he's going to be creating a much bigger drag effect in the air in front of him, and that's going to cost him a lot of straight line speed. He'll still have the manoeuvrability in the corners with the main portion of the front wing there, but the loss of that aerodynamics on the straight is going to cost him very dearly, and that may put him out of the run here to close back up. But meanwhile, into the pit lane come both Nathan Wade and Paul Smithhurst. They make the way in, both hit the limiter line just in time. And as Wade makes his way down pit row, meanwhile Smithhurst behind with the two of them coming together. Wade's decided to go early. I think Smithhurst may have reacted here and seen Wade do so. And perhaps Smithhurst feels as though Wade is somebody he can just simply follow around the circuit. Klaus Biedermann and Jeff Randall in as well, so they're all trying to go early here and get themselves some space to play with. But will this work out in the long term? With Enzo Cantor, now Ryan Jackson, the two leaders here, with 1.35 seconds to Daniel Tufts and Jack Atkinson behind. They've been given the opportunity just to run away with this together as they power their way on down towards turn number 5. They make their way on the headway. Meanwhile, Atkinson and Tufts side by side here as they head in towards turn number 5 respectively. And as they head on in, well, Cantor takes the lead of the race back from Jackson, and Jackson just staying on the outside to bleed off the overspeed and being quite relenting there in terms of the battle. Meanwhile, Tufts versus Atkinson, these two are not stopping the battle between one another, and I think they have got themselves knee-deep in a rivalry, which we love to see as they continue to strip a little bit of time off one another as they make their way out to 6th and in towards the next corner. But as they head in to the toe, meanwhile, we look to Adam Miles here, and he is continuing to bring Chris Wayne with him. Gap at 6/10 there, and Adam Miles now within 1.4 seconds of Jack Atkinson, so he's starting to fill the toe, and with that he will be gaining some race pace as they make the way on down the back straight, and Miles could be back in it yet. He's not out of the woods with regards to battling for the win of this race, and as he comes down towards the hill corner at turn number 8, will Miles continue to try and turn this around, as meanwhile we look from there to Jeff Randall and Klaus Biedermann, and will Klaus Biedermann there being quite open to letting Randall take the lead here. I think as though Randall's the faster driver as the lead driver in a slipstream pair, and therefore Biedermann just being polite and letting the Gone Skipping Racing driver through. But as they come down towards turn number 6, you can see that Biedermann on the inside, and Randall just taking the more natural flying line as they flow off the corner. And what about Nathan Wade and Paul Smithhurst? I hear you ask. Well, they've come out together, near identical pit stops. Both of them stage 3 times of 13.8 seconds. And meanwhile, we've got Daniel Tufts into the pit lane, so he's decided to come in by his lonesome, and I think wonder if he can fit back in with Wade and Smithhurst. But as we do see the pair here making the way out of turn number 9 and up towards 10, we'll wait to see where Tufts comes out in the mix. He is just making his way down towards his pit box at the moment as I look at my commentary booth window, and he'll shortly be coming to a standstill. In fact, they're now servicing the car as Wade comes through turn number 11. The one other thing that a number of drivers may try to do here is short fuel themselves in the pits to go into a lead pack, and then they can stay at the back of it to fuel save to the very end. But as Tufts leaves his pit box, you'll see there making his way out of the pit lane. Meanwhile, on the outside, it's going to be Wade and Smithhurst. The Tufts, I think, will re-emerge pretty much with his rivals in front behind him. So Tufts has jumped ahead of him in the pits, but the thing is he is now in the pack with them as Wade is only within 6.5 tenths and bringing Paul Smithhurst along. So this is an interesting change to the race right now, because Daniel Tufts, I suspect, in the fact he spent 2 seconds less in the pits compared to Wade and Smithhurst, may need to do some fuel saving over the course of this second stint. But Smithhurst there taking a look up the outside, I should say. Now moving to the inside versus Wade. They go 3 wide here, but as Smithhurst tries to look on, Wade simply streamlines his way on through. Now will we see Smithhurst try and make it a 2-way pass here in turn number 5? No, he just holds low versus Tufts. He doesn't try to think about making it a double on Wade, and as they come out of the corner, Nathan Wade leads the trio around, and I think the point here being that they both think that Nathan Wade can take them on to victory. But as they head down through turn number 6, meanwhile we look to the leaders of Enzo Cantor and Ryan Jackson, with Adam Miles now finding his way past Jack Atkinson. So Miles is continuing to grow pace, and Miles is the fastest man out of the circuit right now. He is continuing to push on and push that pace in the 205s, whereas everybody else in the 206s. But as we look here to Cantor versus Jackson, well, they're currently in the very low 206 zeros, so they're effectively practically at the pace of Miles. Miles is gaining a tenth of them each and every lap as they head across the timeline here to go on to what will be the second half of the race very shortly. or Cantor yet to go into the pits, Jackson yet to come in. Indeed, our top 7 right now, all not taking their mandatory pit stop so far as they make the way on through. But as we see, Jackson drifted his way through 90 right. Meanwhile, Miles here continue to hold on the P3 Jackson behind, and with Atkinson behind, I should say, with Remco Pleister and Titus de Jong into the pit lane, P6, P7, and I believe that will drop them towards the bottom of the top 10. If not just outside it. Will the pair come in together? Will they emerge together? The RT Racing pair both designed to come in, and therefore it's a double stop for RT Racing and the Dutch outfit design. This is the best for the drivers. They've got to work together if they want to make more ground. But meanwhile, Tufts, well, is there Smithers and also Wade. The trio continue their way through in the pack as they make their way through the right-hander turn number 1. And on that last lap, it was a new personal best for Paul Smithers, a 205.94. Nathan Wade, a 205.8. And behind him, what was Daniel Tufts, and a 229.54 for an outlap, which is a good outlap. So therefore this show are running on very similar pace to the race leaders of Cantor and Jackson, and Miles the fastest of everybody. In fact, Adam Miles in that last lap, fastest lap of the race, a 205.27. Adam Miles is absolutely storming around here right now, albeit he is still with his 2.5 seconds off of the top 2. But the key point being Jackson and Cantor have got to keep their eyes open in the fact that with regards to the strategy, they may find themselves coming out in amongst Wade and company, and then Adam Miles could right now be grafting the race together to fit himself into the battle for the lead come the very end, or coming out in the lead, and perhaps he'll come out clear of his opponents as he makes his way onto that second stint. Well, all that and more is yet to be determined. It's the big what-if questions that we're waiting to answer. But as our drivers charge on down the round, meanwhile, we look back to Remco Pleister and Titus de Jong. They've come out behind the pair. What is there? I do believe Klaus Biederman and Jeff Randall, as we have got a bit of a battle for P9 brewing here between Biederman and Randall, and now the RT Racing pair will creep into this. So this is essentially where they're going to put the stake in the ground and pitch the battle for the rest of the day. It'll be for the last 2 spots of the top 10, but as they come through turn number 7 through at toe corner, I think Klaus Biederman here will be enjoying this one. Now he's right in the thick of it with some of the finest drivers in the field as we look back from the rear of the 48 car, and Randall there with the toe going up the inside, and De Jong and Pleister not close enough to get involved in this. And as they head on to the brakes, Randall just simply tucks in ahead, and Klaus Biederman not responding there. But Randall goes overly deep, carries too much speed, but carries enough speed in fact to keep the car on course. Heading up the hill, Biederman tries to come back into turn number 9, but can't quite find it. As meanwhile, we look from them to the onboard from Remco Pleister's perspective. And as he powers his way in towards turns 10 and 11, well, he's at the back of this quartet of drivers and trying to stay with them as comfortably as possibly as he can. But heading onwards towards the next lap shortly, I think the RT Racing pair of Pleister and his teammate and De Jong will look to now try and make some headway as the battle in front of them seems to be costing them more and more time. And they'll be conscious they're losing out on potential opportunities to take further places inside the top 10 come at the end of the race. But as they head down towards 90 right, no change at the moment. Pleister will be looking for a nice tight apex, and he absolutely nails it there. And as they make the way out to 90 right, up through the S's, carrying all of the momentum uphill as they dare to do. And well, now for Pleister just staying back, and well, will he be doing some fuel saving there? I doubt it, given the fact his stationary time in the pits was 17.5 seconds. I think he's got more than enough fuel to get to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity. And we're in a triple toe here. You're going to see the overspeed he now gets. Starts to pass one in the form of De Jong. He's in the toe of Will is there. Biederman still as Randall tries to come across, and Pleister making it 1, making it 2, looking to make it 3 on the outside there as they head on through. It's 3-1 into turn number 5. Comes on down, but he's still got Randall on the low line with Biederman tucking in behind Randall. So Pleister's made to go deep. He's made to go very wide indeed. Collects the car together. Takes a little bit of grass and corner exit. In fact, he has to let off and let De Jong back in front as Jeff Randall there almost over braking it in towards turn number 6. But meanwhile, looking for this battle to further up towards our leaders. Well, into the pits comes Adam Miles, and Jack Atkinson also comes in. He leaves it late as Atkinson, but he banks in the end on tucking in behind Miles. And right now, this is the big moment. Where will Miles fit into the proceedings when he emerges from the pit lane? Meanwhile, Paul Smithers, Nathan Wade and Daniel Tufts, they're making their way in towards turn number 10 currently, so it is going to be very close. But as Miles is getting ready to come into his pit box, well, meanwhile, Atkinson goes on. Here comes Smithers, Wade and Tufts as we look to them making their way through the final corner, but as they charge out to turn number 11, Miles is still being serviced at the moment. We are waiting for to take the fuel gun out. They have indeed now, and Miles has been released. We look to the blimp camera here, and well, that's not the greatest view. We'll try and get you a better view, and there it is. And there's Smithers, Wade, and Tuff's going on through, and as they clear 90 right, well, it's going to be extremely close, and Miles, and what is that, Atkinson, come out in the pack here, and it's going to be a pack of 5 now, as the quintet make the way up through the S's, and it is game on. We believe this is going to be part of the lead pack come the final moments of this race, once we've seen the pit stops from what is Wayne, Jackson, and Cantor, and with that in mind, it will mean that Adam Miles is on course for battling for the win, as is Nathan Wade. The two championship rivals, plus plenty more drivers in the score and store, as they make the way down the straightaway towards turn number 5, and now nobody here can afford to waste any time. They all need to work together for the common good of the enemy of my enemy is my friend for the moment, and it will be once all the pit stops are completed that I think you're going to see this go to the absolute escalation point. But Miles leads the second pack of cars, the lead drivers who pitted so far, and as he makes his way around there through the inner loop corner in P4, well, right now getting himself comfortably set here for the run, but you can see Wade looking around the outside, and Nathan Wade trying to take the fight. They've had very similar pit stop times, being everybody going for the maximum fuel they need to get to the end. Nobody trying to underfuel it here. The only one who seems to have done so is Daniel Tuss, but you never know, he may have done some fuel so to shorten his pit stop. But as our drivers make the way down the back straight, Enzo Cantor and Ryan Jackson into the pit lane as well, so their pit stop ongoing. And as we look at Miles here defending hard versus Wade, will goes very, very wide there, coming out of Hill Corner, keeps her in track limits. And then in towards turn number 9. Meanwhile, Tuss and Smith are starting to get elbows out versus one another. But meanwhile, it's Cantor and what is Jackson still being serviced. They're almost at their pit boxes now. Chris Wayne goes on to lead a lap of this race, but the drivers drift away through turn at number 10 and in towards 11. Well, where will we see Jackson and Cantor come out? Well, as we look out the commentating booth window, I can tell you that Jackson and Cantor are still being serviced. Meanwhile, Tuff's here looking for the move, but Jackson has finished being serviced. So has Enzo Cantor, and well, Jackson is going to come out well clear of Cantor. Cantor, in fact, missed his pit box briefly, and as Jackson builds up speed before 90 right, Ryan Jackson in may have pulled off a miracle, which is to come out the lead and be clear, as we can see that Cantor has come out 1.5 seconds behind Jackson, and now Cantor in P2. Well, this is going to get very interesting. Chris Wayne, we believe, will come into the pits and fall behind this group when his stint's completed, but effective leader right now is Ryan Jackson, and Jackson is almost clear of the rest of the field, and Ryan Jackson has had a shorter stop. He has taken 1 second less, 1 second less worth of fuel in the pit lane, so it's down now to this pack behind as they almost go 4 wide into turn 5. Miles backs out of it. 9 at 4 does not go into 3, that goes into 2 wide at most, and as they make their way through turn number 5, when it's game on now, they will all be huffing and puffing. They will be chasing at Jackson like mad to try and bring him into the clutch, and Jackson may not be able to run away with this, to be fair. He may still need to fall back and fuel safe with the pack, but as they make their way through turn at number 6, presumably it's not, then Jackson is on course and pulling off perhaps with the miracle of Watkins Glen as they make their way up towards turn number 7 here once again. And through the right hander they go, where it is going to be very close here. We've got 1 more pit stops to come from our leader group, and that's on Chris Wayne, who's still leading this race, 28.5 seconds clear of the rest of the field. The God-skipping racing driver enjoying leading a lap or two. It's been some time since we've seen him at the top of the timing tower, but as Cantor goes to the inside of Wade, and Miles also being made to wait behind. Well, Enzo Cantor right now firmly wants to lead this back. I think Wade and Miles also have other ideas, but Wayne is into the pit lane, so now we'll get to see where he fits into the equation, as it's 1.5 seconds to Jackson. Jackson is being reeled in, and Cantor, I think, will be the one to breathe into the pack as Wayne reaches his pit box very shortly, and we'll have to wait and see where he fits in. But as our drivers roll the way through turn number 11, we're heading on down and around now towards what is lap number 14. It is Jackson who leads this race, Chris Wayne at the end of the pit lane there, and what I think Wayne is going to come out behind all of this, as in fact he is still being serviced. It's a long pit stop for Chris Wayne, so it's definitely not going to see him come into lead pack as he emerges now, and it is going to be P8 there. He'll comfortably come out ahead of teammate Jeff Randall, so Chris Wayne in a lonely P8, meanwhile the top 7 all together, and we're looking back to that top 7. Ryan Jackson 1.5 seconds clear, and are holding that gap at 1.5 seconds for now, and hoping praying and absolutely wishing on the idea that the rest of the field battles hard as they make the way down the back straight. But as they do, charging down towards turn number 5. Again, it's going to be 4 wide almost here as they make the way down. You can see Atkinson thinking about who to pick a place behind. But meanwhile, Cantor backs off there, and Miles and Wade battle side by side, coming through turn number 5. But for Miles, as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the privateer machine, the 85 car right now, setting the pace up front. I think Nathan Wade won't mind Miles running the pace too much, albeit once again for what is their Wade. He'll want to win this race. He won't just want Miles not to win it and the championship come to him. At the end of the day, Wade, like everybody here, is a winner. A natural born racer's instinct is to win first and foremost. But I think if they can't close up to Jackson, then the battle will really start to tick up between Miles and Wade. But as they make the way down the back stretch, and it is now 1.3 seconds to gap to Jackson. So Miles is closing, but Wade's getting closer and closer. Thinks about it but can't quite find the move into Hill Corner, so he lets Miles take the lead initiative there as they make the way on out. Wade follows them up the hill in towards turn number 9. 10 minutes of this race remaining when they come to the timing line shortly, and with that it will be another 5 laps approximately to go. We're going to get plenty of our fill in terms of laps delivered here today at the Watkins Glen International Circuit in Skylar County in the state of New York. And as they make the way on through in towards turn number 11, the US circuit is absolutely delivering here. And now Adam Miles within almost a second of Jackson, and the toe now definitely being felt as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Jackson will fall into the clutches of the battle, and Ryan Jackson's pace is just not quite enough to keep the field at bay. We've got a battle for the win on, and Adam Miles right now will know that the championship battle is still on. Should he be able to just get a bit closer to Jackson and then fight for the win come the very end. But as they charge their way up the hill through the S's, gap now less than a second, and this is where the toe really starts to accumulate as they head onto the extended straightaway from 4 to 5. And for Miles, it's going to be a gap that continues to come crashing down in quick succession. Meanwhile, Wade now trying to take a peek there, also getting the toe of a Jackson's car. So Wade trying to gain an advantage here, trying to give himself the opportunity to lead this group and bring Tufts with him. He'll want as many drives between himself and Miles before they make their way on to that final lap if he can. But Miles puts the car firmly on the inside there and says, I know what you're trying to do, and I want to be the leader who takes Jackson as they make the way out to turn number 5. But the problem here is, of course, for Miles, he needs to insist on that position every corner, every lap, all the way out to where he closes up to Jackson and makes the pass, simply because he's never going to be able to drop these drivers naturally given the potency of the toe. And meanwhile behind we do see Paul Smith first there, take a little bit of peek on the inside, can't quite find it. Cantor still with him as they come through the right-hander at turn at number 7 and charging on towards the back stretch now. Will further back, Atkinson there almost losing the rear of the car as he made his way out of toe corner, just dipping the rear left tyre onto the grass, albeit for a brief moment. And as they power their way up towards turn at number 8, all the drivers here now all in line of stern formation. Nobody really trying to look for a move now. They'll try and go for it again. I think it's 10 and 11 as we see there. Smith first taking a little bit of a peek, couldn't quite find it versus what was Daniel Tufts. And as they roll the way out of turn number 9, still all in line formation as they head into the final 2 corners. We're going from left to right here, and Atkinson as well, itching for a potential opportunity as the podium. But I think just playing the patience game here and sitting behind the pack and using the time wisely to try and gauge where he can get into the mix. As he heads on to the start-finish straight, all the drives now start to close together naturally with the effects of the slipstream from 6 cars behind the leader. In turn 1 they go this time around, and as they make their way into the braking zone here, where it's going to be Wade on the inside, but Smithhurst has gone round, and with that Atkinson has taken evasive action, but has it cost him dear? That's the question as he makes his way back up to speed. And Paul Smithhurst there, I don't think it's of his own volition going around, but we'll take a look very shortly. But meanwhile, now Ryan Jackson holding on to lead still, and Wade and Miles side by side as they come out of the S's. Once they power their way onto the straight, meanwhile Daniel Tufts there in the toe of Jackson. It is going to be 3 wide, but Tufts is in the wrong place to try and capitalise, as it will be Miles in the middle of the road. Tufts looks in the middle as well behind Miles. Meanwhile Wade on the low ground on the inside as they come into turn number 5. Now turn on in here, Wade's going to be in the prime position. Jackson tries to hold it round the outside, 3 wide through turn 5 they go, but of course it's a wider circumference there, and as they make their way on down towards turn number 6, now Jackson has to back off. Miles switches the inside here versus Wade. The battle for the leaders on here between the 2 championship belligerents, and as they head up towards turn number 7, in towards the next braking zone they go, and it is going to be tough. So he looks up the inside of Jackson as Wade here side by side with Miles, and this is going to carry it all the way through to the end of the lap as the minimum, if not the remainder of the race, as they roll the way off. Meanwhile, as we see contact there between what is Jackson and Tufts, and just a little bit of a wobble there between the two cars. Tufts tries to come back across again just to make sure that Jackson is pinned to that outside line. Wade, meanwhile, on the inside versus Miles, but struggling there to try and get the nose ahead under braking. He's going to be side by side up the hill is Miles versus Wade, and as they head into the braking zone here for turn number 9, Miles will get ahead now as the corner naturally closes off with the outside line running out of space. Wade switches to the inside, but he's not close enough to try and make a move. And as they roll the way into the final 2 corners, where it's now Adam Miles, who is your leader, with only what is going to be another 4 laps on the clock, as we understand it. As they come out to the right hand, in fact, it'll be 3 laps on the clock. Let's correct ourselves there with the fact we've got less than 6 minutes remaining. We'll charge it down towards turn 1 this time. Miles lead, ahead of Nathan Wade P2, and Ryan Jackson P3. It's Daniel Tufts P4, ahead of Enzo Cantor P5, and Jack Atkinson at P6. That's your top 6 together, albeit I think that Jack Atkinson may have a slowdown penalty which he's serving, and therefore Atkinson releasing the top 5 to battle for the win of this race, and he will be what is now 2 seconds behind. I'm not sure if he'll be able to close up, but whilst we do have a brief moment, let's take a look back to what happened to Paul Smithhurst on the previous lap. He's making his way down towards turn number 1 then, on the run on the inside slightly, makes way to the outside, and contact there. Enzo Cantor coming to bat, and that was contact with Atkinson. So Atkinson not able to avoid the contact with Smithhurst, and that's why Atkinson's been struggling and the pace has fallen off the car. But as we take a look back at that incident from the perspective of Enzo Cantor, I think here just an innocent mistake under braking, like what we saw earlier in race number 1 between drivers, and Cantor just coming in too hot there, and Smithhurst being sent around and on his way, and the SLC Movano racing machine getting away with light damage there, but that may still knock him out of a little bit of contention in terms of straight line speed later on. But as we look back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, meanwhile we look to the top 5 here, and that is Cantor who leads now for SRC Movano Racing as they come through the right hand at a turn at number 7 and rolling on through towards the back straight. It gives us an opportunity to take a quick sip of water, as we can see Jackson also cutting in behind Tufts there in the battle for P4. And coming down into the right hander of turn number 8. And rolling up the hill now, it is going to be what is their Wade ahead of Miles, albeit Miles looking back on the inside here into 9, and Miles very comfortable that inside line to turn number 9. He doesn't mind forcing it all the way up the hill, and as they head in towards turns 10 and 11, will Cantor now will be hoping that the 2 behind will fight one another. At this point, Wade could of course start to really battle hard for P2 and put the pressure on Miles effectively to clear him and then bring down Cantor. Wade does have that option if he wants to focus more on a run-up spot today, and therefore take the championship fight away from Miles and just force it out of his hands. But as they head down towards another lap, 2 more to go. As they head on to lap number 18 of what we expect will be a 19-lap race. Wade on the inside of Miles. You can see that gap to Cantor. It's already up to 1 second. I think Wade now has hedged his bets here on battling with Miles for P2. And Miles, of course, knows that he cannot continue that championship battle to the season finale if he does not win this second race of the day. With the drop scores accounted for come the end of the season, Miles must win here in this feature race. Otherwise, the championship goes to Wade by default. But as they power their way down the straightaway here up towards turn number 5, Daniel Tufts now also gets involved. You can see there Cantor offering the toe to Wade. He wants them all to fight. For Cantor, it's selfish reasons, and those reasons are he wants his first win of the season. And as they come in towards turn number 5, Tufts looks around the outside here. Miles is made to fall back as it's the reverse Moses manoeuvre into the outer loop. But as they make their way down the chute and into the inner loop corner, you can see there Tufts bring himself back onto the road surface. Inside line to turn 6. Miles again in the middle space, find himself squeezed out of the battle. Wade holds the outside as they power their way up towards turn number 7. And as they charge up the hill, Jackson just watching on behind. But now Enzo Cantor 1.1 seconds clear. The battle is continued to make them fall away for the race leader. And Cantor right now just needs to keep the pace up and not make any mistakes to take what of him will be his inaugural victory. But meanwhile for Miles, this is getting worse and worse. The light at the end of the tunnel is fading as they make their way down towards turn number 8 for the penultimate time here. There's also a major battle going on in the battle for what is P9 between Remco Pleister, Tita de Jong and Jeff Randall. But we are going to stay with this battle for what is the podium spots to the end of the race, ladies and gentlemen, as it is for the championship as well, if you don't mind us doing so. For as our drivers make the way out to 9 and in towards 10. Right now, Wade and Miles side by side Cantor now 1.3 seconds. It's going to be 1.4 by the end of this lap, I reckon. And in fact, it already is. The damage is being done. And Nathan Wade right now has put the lead of this race out of Miles' grasp as they head on to the final lap. And it's Enzo Cantor who leads. They head on towards the 19th and final run in this second race of the day. He's comfortably ahead. And right now, he just cannot afford to make a mistake. Meanwhile, Nathan Wade fighting for P2. It's the Walsh bar now and Miles behind him. And it's going to be Tufts and Jackson who follow on through. They'll both want a podium finish as well. And as they make the way up through the S's here, where it is going to be a line of stern fallen for now. But Miles knows he needs to pull off some magic if he wants to get past Wade and then go hunting after Cantor. The slipstream is fading away. The gap now to Cantor almost at 1.8 seconds. The toe has almost faded away. But Miles is going to take one last shot around the outside here versus Wade. As meanwhile, Cantor, they're giving the toe on the outside line. But Miles there bringing it back to the inside. He knows he's got to defend P2 with everybody right now itching for that runner-up spot in this race. But Tufts there goes through the middle of the cars, round the outside, through the outer loop corner. And as he comes on down and on towards the chute, Miles holds the middle ground, he holds P2. Tufts now defends for P3 versus Jackson. Wade falls back to P5, the brief lock-up from Miles, but nothing to cry about as they make the way out of the corner and up towards turn number 7. But now it's 1.7 seconds to Enzo Cantor as they head in towards toe corner. And I think the light may have faded, ladies and gentlemen. It's not over though. Let's not count it over to that checkered flag waves. But as they make the way out of toe, well, right now Miles is going to have to do everything he can in the space of 4 corners to try and find a way to close up to Cantor. But meanwhile, Jackson, they're defending hard on the inside as Tufts tries to go around the outside, heading through hill, and up the hill they go towards turn number 9. Miles uses all the runoff there. He literally goes only inches away from the grass. He tries to get as much speed as possible as they come through turn number 9. Tufts there gliding his way through. Jackson holding firm on the inside. Wade in P5, but he won't mind this at all. And as the drivers make the way through the final 2 corners, Enzo Cantor right now, it's been a long time coming through to take the checkered flag as he makes his way through the final corner. He's had his bumps, he's had his scrapes, but today he'll finally achieve the dream, which is to take victory here at Watkins Glen as Enzo Cantor takes the win for SOC Bavano Racing. Adam Miles P2, the run of wins comes to its end after 12 wins back to back, and for Adam Miles, the championship hunt is over with Ryan Jackson completing the podium, Daniel Tufts P4 and Nathan Wade with that P5 finish, and Miles P2 is your champion for 2023 with Jack Atkinson coming home P6 ahead of Paul Smith as P7, Chris Wayne P8, and it'll be Jeff Randall who holds off the RT Racing pair of Titus de Jong and Remco Pleister to the line, and then behind them Klaus Biedermann finishes P12, the last finisher on the lead lap. As good as me as my voice almost goes, we had the 3 retirees of AJ Campbell, Neil Garner and Juan Rodriguez. But for Enzo Cantor, he's finally done it, ladies and gentlemen. It has taken time, but I don't think he can quite believe he's done it, the SRC Bavano Racing driver, as he celebrates there on the run-up through the S's. And well, you can understand why he's over the moon, but he doesn't want to drive too far back in the wrong direction, as otherwise he will be disqualified for the race as part of post-race automated stewarding. So the Italian right now makes his way to the pit lane, and with that, well, let's take you through those race results subject to any steward's inquiries. After what was 40 minutes of fascinating racing action here in the feature race at Watkins Glen International in round 22 of the Musical Money Skip Barber Challenge Trophy for 2023, hosted on iRacing, Enzo Cantor takes his first win of the season for SRC Movano Racing by 1.5 seconds the end over Adam Miles. A second place, well earned and well deserved, but unfortunately for Miles, the run of wins comes to a conclusion after what I think was going to be an unassailable record of 12 wins on the bounce, and with that second place does mean that he will be runner-up in the championship. Ryan Jackson P3 there, bringing home what I believe is one of a limited number, if not his first podium of the season. 3 attempts away from Miles and holding off Daniel Tufts to the checkered flag, with Tufts having to go on longer for his first podium of the season. Nathan Wade, meanwhile, with that P5 and the result of Adam Miles, is your confirmed champion, as I'm to understand it, or at least provisional, subject to post-race stewarding. He is your provisional champion for 2023 in the Skip Barber Challenge Trophy. And then Jack Atkinson at P6 there, falling away at the end after the contact with Paul Smithhurst, and that is why we have to say provisional, of course, because with Enzo Cantor being part of that contact with Smithhurst, we'll have to wait and see if it goes to the stewards after the race. And then Chris Wayne at P8 for God Skipping Racing ahead of teammate Jeff Randall P9, with Titus de Jong just finishing behind Randall by 3 tenths at the finish line, P10 for RT Racing. His teammate Remco Pleister at P11 best of the rest, with Klaus Bieder at P12 there, the privateer on his debut, finishing outside the top 10 in both races, but enjoying the race, and I reckon all the same. And then P13 finishing 5 laps down and will be classified as a 13th place finisher, AJ Campbell for Artel Motorsport. And then we have the 2 retirees who did not finish as they did not complete the half race distance. Juan Rodriguez for Firebird Sim Racing and Neil Gardner, both of them retiring after that incident on lap number 6. And we saw Duca Vitra not able to make it to the grid once again. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness, I must admit, I'm actually speechless for how it's played on out. And Watkins Glen was always going to deliver, but who could have thought it would deliver in that manner? But of course, it's not quite over yet, because whilst the racing has concluded for today, we still do have our post-round interviews coming up. We'll be back in approximately 10 to 15 minutes for those. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. But just before we come on to our interviews, we do need to clarify that after a reassessment of the points scored today, the championship is not over. In fact, it is a championship that is going to continue into the final 2 rounds of the season, in that it's been calculated that should Adam Miles score every point next week that's possible, in terms of the full 89 points available for what is the full 87 points, I should say, available for what is the race wins, plus also the fastest laps, plus pole position, then Nathan Wade will need to score at least 65 points, if not higher, if he wants to take the championship crown. So therefore, it can still go down to the wire, and it's come down to the fact that whilst Adam Miles may not have taken both wins today with the P5 and also the P2, and that was, well, not the P5 and P2, the P5 and P10 that was accrued by Nathan Wade. It does mean that the championship is open. He didn't have enough points to seal it down, so we do apologise for any confusion, and, well, we've got a championship still on our hands. But speaking of a championship still on our hands, we do have Nathan Wade getting ready to join us in the interview room, and, well, let's have him join us immediately to hear his perspective on what has been definitely a night of challenges, but at the same time having to fight hard for every metre of road. Well, he joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Nathan. And, well, it looked difficult out there at Watkins Glen, and a championship that continues to go to the season finale. It doesn't look as though it's gone the way you've wanted it to today.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, it weren't great. I'm a bit disappointed with race one. It's partially my fault. I went for a bit of a silly move towards the end. I don't personally, from my end, there is no contact. It is just a little bit of netcode. But I mean, I did come right across Jeff in the end of the day, so I will take the blame on that one. So apologies to him, because I ruined his race as well. And then, yeah, after race one, I counted up, I think, seeing if I could take any points from this week after my poor race one, but I couldn't. So I thought I'd just try and fight Adam the whole way, see if I can allow some of the other drivers to pull away, which Enzo then did in the end. And if I could just fight Adam all the way, I could stop him from kind of minimising his points. Sadly, it was only for P2, but I did want to try and do a bit more than that.
Oh, indeed, a difficult one, and it all started off on a strong note in qualifying with pole position after a qualifying session which went down to the finest of margins, and you found yourself standing tall.
Yeah, got a good couple of laps in, drafting each other with Jeff. So yeah, shout out to him. We had a good couple of laps in quali, and we managed to get, I think, both on the front row, which was quite good. So we had good pace in quali. And yeah, I was definitely looking forward to race one at that point.
I have to ask, in qualifying, given the fact that today really has been the definition of slipstream assisted qualifying and everyone trying to work together, it was about 1.5 seconds worth of time just being the toe. But how did you find the perfect toe? Because you just seem to find an edge that nobody else could get out there in terms of picking the right moment.
I think it's mainly just making sure when you cross the line to start your lap, you are pretty much a second behind, and you're kind of at the limit of getting a toe and not getting a toe, just so you get that run all the way up, just past the bus stop, and then overtaking there is probably your best bet. Granted, if you had another car in front of you after that, and then you got another toe down the straight at the towards the end of the lap, then you would get probably a low 4. But yeah, to have that luck's a bit ridiculous. So yeah, just good planning going into the lap, and then you should be all good.
Well, going from good planning in qualifying and into the race, when we did go green flag racing for the first time today, for the opening 18 minutes, it was very close, nip and tuck between yourself and what was the top 8 in the field. And I have to ask, was it completely on edge all the time, or was it sort of very calm at first, but then you could feel things intensifying as we got closer and closer to the final lap?
I think it was pretty intense most of the race. It's really enjoyable to race here, especially in these cars with the draft, because everyone is so close. You're always 2, 3, 4 wide everywhere, so you're always on edge. Obviously, like you saw in the end of race one, stuff like that happens all over the show usually. Luckily, we all kept it clean until I made silly mistake towards the end. But yeah, it's definitely you're on edge most most of the laps at this track. But yeah, it's really enjoyable. Really enjoyable to race.
Oh, most definitely. It sounds they enjoyed it out there, and we enjoyed it from our perspective in the commentary booth. And as the race went on, of course, bar the incident at the very end where we saw the contact between yourself and Jeff Randall, I have to ask, was there a particular place you wanted to position the car as you made your way into those three wide moments, particularly down the run towards turn number 5?
Not really. You just sort of wing it when you get up to it. You can't really plan anything here because you I don't know. You say you're starting third going into a corner. Suddenly, two people will send it because they've got so much like speed against you, and then you're in fifth, and then you've got to wangle your way back up to the front just to make sure you're going on to the last lap. You're not in I don't know a position where you might get swallowed up to eighth. So you just have to kind of improvise every corner as it comes in on this track.
And speaking of improvisation, it looked as though there was a degree of improvisation in our second race of the day, starting on pole for the feature. And early on, we almost saw the field split into two parts. And I think you might have been egging on your rivals around you to try and push a little bit more.
Yeah, slightly. After I completed, I wasn't even thinking about the second race after the incident. I didn't realise until I'd readied up onto the grid that I was actually on pole. I kind of forgot about the reverse grid. I looked at who was around me and didn't. You're not going to pull away from anyone. Just a fact. I was just like, if I can stay in the front pack, I'll try and sit in kind of third, fourth, fifth, and just keep with the draft and just save some fuel. And then I'd always plan to go and do an early stop. I was going to try and go in with some other drivers as well, just to make sure that when I came out, I had that tow that me and one or two drivers could just keep switching, just to kind of gain as much time as possible, so we weren't fighting the whole way. Managed to come out with Paul and who was it? Daniel Tufts a couple laps later. We had a good race then, and then conveniently Adam pops up next to me as he comes out the pits. Just like last week. So I had great fun in that second race, just fighting him the whole way. It was very enjoyable. Good fun.
Oh, most definitely, and particularly on the last couple of laps when we saw the two of you battle hard for P2 whilst Enzo Cantor was running away. I get the feeling that you didn't really worry about the Italian anymore. You were just focusing on battling with your championship rival.
Yeah, my plan there was literally just to minimise Adam's results, purely because I couldn't improve. I don't really like doing it, but it gave me a more enjoyable race, just fighting him the whole way. It's kind of a shame that I dropped back in that last lap and dropped back to fifth, because I could have definitely battled Adam all the way to the line. But yeah, it was my only kind of option after that first race result.
Well, a difficult end to what has been a challenging day for yourself, but still 2 more rounds to come, and next week we bring it all to a close at the Virginia International Raceway in the aforementioned state. How are you feeling for VIR?
There's a lot of draft there as well, to be fair, so it's probably going to be a bit similar to this track. Nowhere near as drafty as this track, but it should definitely be a good, enjoyable finale to the championship. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it's going to be some good tight racing with me and Adam. I think it's going to be good fun. Definitely next week. It's going to be a good one to watch.
Well, we do look forward to seeing you out on circuit there in a week's time. But just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to live on the broadcast this evening?
As always, yourself for running a fabulous broadcast. It's always great to watch it back. Obviously, Jeff and everyone else that runs the league all do a great job to get us racing every week. And then just everyone that's been out there racing in that front pack today. It's been clean for 95% of it, apart from a couple of mistakes I've had. But yeah, it's definitely been good fun today.
Well, we're glad to hear you've enjoyed it, Nathan, and we do look forward to seeing you out of the circuit in a week's time. There's still a championship to wrap up, but will it be you who takes the crown? We'll find out then. But until then, thank you for joining me in the interview room, and have a wonderful evening.
Cheers, Paul.
All the best. So hearing there from Nathan Wade, a difficult day for him today after a pole position to walk home about, and in the end, in race number 1, a late incident between himself and Jeff Randall, which looked to be a combination on one side of netcode and on the other potential contact between the two cars. But either way, Wade and Randall coming together meant that it was a spoiled result in the sprint race and a position he could not come back from in terms of notching up more points going into the feature. From that point onwards, it was about trying to deny Adam Miles points, and of course wanting to win the race, like you said, doesn't want to really battle in a way to deny his rival points, just battling for positions at random, but instead trying to go for the win. But on those last couple of laps, it was the fight between himself and Miles for P2, but Miles found a way to steer clear, and Wade fell down to P5, and well, that means we're now set up with a championship battle that's going to go the full distance, all 24 rounds, and Nathan Wade will be leading going into the season finale, but will he come out on top? That's what we'll find out next week. But going from our first interview to our second, we should point out that we have had a change to our interview order. We'll next be hearing from Jeff Randall from Gone Skipping Racing, and Adam Miles will now be our last interview of the day due to their availability. So we now get ready to speak to Jeff Randall and hear his perspective on what has been 2 races, which he's thoroughly enjoyed, I suspect, but also a degree of frustration in finding himself being knocked out of contention for the win and having to battle further down the order. But as he gets ready to join me now, we'll hear about more of that and plenty of other aspects from the series organizer as we get ready to bring him in to the interview room. Of course, it's always pleasant to hear from Jeff, and as he does join me now, well, good evening to you, Jeff, and what a pair of races we've had at Watkins Glen, and you found yourself right in the thick of the battling in both our races today, albeit neither one of them coming away, I think, the way you wanted them to.
Oh, I think that's a fair comment. It's a typical example of, well, that's racing, I suppose, what happened here tonight. Thoroughly enjoyable race 1, and just unfortunate right at the end, going down the back straight. But it's racing. I'm not blaming anyone. Nathan thought that he was clear, but unfortunately he wasn't, and he's apologised for what happened there, but it's not his fault. It's just one of those things.
Oh, indeed. But focusing on some more of the positives, in qualifying a P2 from yourself, and it looked as though at one point you could have snuck the pole position, and we've seen you sneak a few pole positions this season, but just missed out in the end by a tenth or two. How was qualifying for you?
Yeah, qualifying worked really well. Got in a group with Nathan and Paul, and we worked really well together. And then Paul spun out, so it left just Nathan and myself. And yeah, we kind of crossed the line with 2 laps to go, with literally about 3 seconds to spare, knowing that if we kept it sensible, we'd have 2 more laps. One where I'd give Nathan the tow, and then the second one where he'd give me the tow. So yeah, we worked together, and that worked really well actually to get first and second.
Well, good starts this evening, and then at race number 1, the sprint, there was a 14th place finish, but before it ended up in difficulty on the final lap, of which we have addressed already, we saw you batting right at the front of the field, and it was a top 8 battle for the win.
Yeah. I mean, it was cracking stuff, wasn't it? It must have been great to watch. I'm looking forward to watching the broadcast back. But I think it really was a lottery as to who was going to get the good position going off that back straight. Because if you're not in the top 2 getting off that back straight, you're not going to stand much of a chance of getting past, because there just isn't any room.
And I have to ask, at certain moments when we did see multiple 3-wides, even the occasional 4-wide thrown into the mix, were there any times where you sort of sat there thinking to yourself, this isn't going to work? Or was it just simply, yep, this is just Skippy's as normal?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually quite a good question. It is. Sometimes you think, actually, that's getting a bit hairy. You like to be alongside a driver who you can trust on the inside and on the outside if you're going around a flat out corner 3-wide. And if you're in that position, then yeah, you're thinking, okay, this is okay. But occasionally it can get a little bit hairy, just a little wheel touch. But of course, being open wheel, you don't need too much of that, because it can cause all sorts of disasters.
Oh, indeed. And when it goes wrong, as we did talk a little bit about earlier, we saw the contact between yourself and Nathan Wade. Looked as though a combination of one side netcode and on the other, cars rubbing together, and well, a bit unexpected by the looks of things.
Yeah, totally unexpected. It's, as I say, it is just racing, and it is just what happens. That is, I think, probably got a reputation of being the most dangerous straight on iRacing. It always seems to unfold there.
Oh, indeed. But it's going from an unfolding sprint race to a feature race, which saw a little bit of an incident early on, and it looks like you were running the majority of the race without a nose cone.
Yeah, I had to run 3 laps without a nose cone, and then that was just so that I could get into the pit window. So I think it occurred round about 6 minutes in, and again, just drove straight into the back of Nathan. Fair enough, the guys in front did concertina going around turn 1. And I just wasn't ready for that, so my fault entirely. I'll hold my hands up. I'm just glad that it was only me who was broken, and I didn't break anyone else's car. But yeah, the next 3 laps are very compromised. Like, top speed was right down, but just went round and then pitted as soon as possible so that I could fix the car, get back out with a full tank, and hopefully get to the end.
But on the opposite hand, we did see a brilliant battle all the way to the finish for P9 between yourself and the RT racing pair of Titus de Jong and Remco Pleiser.
Yes, I was an English filling in a Dutch sandwich. It was really good fun, actually. We had a lot of respect for each other in that, and my plan was to be in 3rd place going onto the back straight. But I'd actually left myself a bit too far back, so I couldn't get into the lead going round the right-hander at the end of that straight. So I had to pull a couple of moves. Pleased I did, and just managed to hold on.
Well, hard-fought battle for P9 and taking away a positive from today. And now we only have 2 rounds remaining. It's VIR week next week to bring the curtain down. How are you feeling for the circuit in the state of Virginia?
Well, I've never actually raced that layout, so it is completely unknown to me. I've raced the shorter version. It's narrow, it's bumpy, it's very, very different to where we just raced at Watkins Glen. I believe it's quite quick, but the first section's fairly technical, so I think there's a possibility for some of the quicker guys to break away. I don't know. I'm looking forward to finding out, seeing how it goes.
We're looking forward to seeing how you get on there in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Jeff, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I guess I've got to give a big shout out to Adam for keeping this thing going right down to the wire. We're still not decided, even though Nathan had a massive lead. Adam just keeps chipping away and chipping away. So huge kudos to him for keeping at it. And let's see what happens at the end. And of course, Paul, you for what you do behind the scenes and on the broadcast. Fabulous job. And to all the drivers for showing up and making this what it is. It's been a great series.
Oh, indeed. It has one last great page to turn in the book of 2023. And Jeff, we look forward to seeing you out of the circuit to write some of those pages with the rest of the paddock in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining me in the interview room and congratulations on your performances today.
Thank you, Paul.
Have a great evening.
Cheers, you too.
So here and there from Jeff Randall from Gone Skipping Racing after what was a great qualifying session which saw him work with Nathan Wade for them to make it P2, P1 respectively. It all unfolded between the two of them at the end of the first race with a small bit of contact in the end, seeing Randall's sprint race dashed in despair with P14 finish, but then trying to come back in the second race of the day and contact to the back of Nathan Wade's car, and well, it would be irony that the two of them would come together again albeit it would be Randall this time who would end up with the difficulties, and as we've seen in the replay footage, losing a lot of straight line speed with a missing nose cone, but after getting the cone back, going hunting after P9, and along the way overtaking Titus de Jong, Remco Pleiser and Klaus Beerdemann along the way for a brilliant battle further down the order. And well, we look forward to seeing how Jeff Randall gets on in the final 2 races of the season, and can he end it on a high? That'll be the challenge that awaits him. As we now come to our third interview of today, we're going to be very shortly hearing from SRC Movano Racing's Enzo Cantor, taking his first win of the season, and with that I think he'll be absolutely pleased with the fact it has finally come to him, albeit battling hard in both races, and we get ready for him to join us in the interview room, and as we do, we'll hear his perspective on what has definitely been a great day for the Italian. But as he does get ready to join me now, and in fact he does join me in the interview room, we say hello there to Enzo Canton. Enzo, it has taken multiple rounds, but you finally brought home the win you've been looking for so long. It must feel fantastic to know you've made it a double podium and a win in the feature at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, finally I did it, and I'm drinking a beer to celebrate. Well, where do you want I start from? Because it could be a long story to tell.
Well, let's start off with the beginning at qualifying. P4 in qualifying looked as though you were battling hard to try and get yourself on the front row, but in the end it was only the second row. Just take us through qualifying.
Yeah, well, I pushed the green button in the very first moment of the start of the session, because I want to be with the fastest guys in order to help each other with the draft. But I did a stupid mistake, because I got a speed penalty in the pit, so I had to restart the session and exit from the pit alone. There was a guy behind me, Jack Atkinson. We were only 2 cars. We helped each other to do a good lap, and yeah, here the 4th place is enough to wish in a good way, in a good race. Fortunately, because yeah, qualifying is not the most important thing here.
Indeed, and if anything, the most important thing is to be leading in the races, and we saw plenty of that from yourself today, starting with the sprint race, battling hard from the outset all the way to the end, and you seem to have this desire to always be on the inside to most corners when it was 3 wide. Just take us through your approach to the sprint race.
Yeah, well, in the sprint race, you know, I like to stay in front. I like to be the first car of the train. So my goal was to stay extremely hard in front and train myself every lap to battle, because you know, in the last lap it should be a very hard battle. So I had. I thought it could be a nice idea to train the battle every lap with the fastest guys. And yes, in the long straight that Geoff said before is the most dangerous straight on iRacing. Yes, I agree with him. Well, if you're in front, you can redraft. And yes, the correct line for the turn after the long straight is starting from the left of the road, no? But I am able to manage the corner even if I'm starting from the very right, so in a very tight line, being so tight on the curb and keeping my speed. So I was very confident in that place, and that's one of my favorite point of the track. And then in the other ones, you can be inside or outside. There's plenty of room to battle with 2 or 3 wide, so no problem.
Oh, indeed, and knowing that balance and really testing the limits of where you could put yourself, as we do look to one moment where you went 4 wide into turn number 5 in the feature race. You're able to pull off a P2 in the sprint, and well, you weren't quite done there, because when we went to the feature race, you pushed even more.
Yeah, in the sprint race, coming back for a moment in the sprint race, in the last lap, I knew that Adam would attack me very hardly in the last corners, and I saw his replay. I knew that he was very strong in the last hard braking corner on the right before the last part of the circuit. So he was on the outside. I was in front of him, but he braked very, very hard. I preferred to not brake too much hard in order to not risk to go wide and cause an incident. So I exit from the corner, not completely in front of him, and in that moment I knew that I would lose the race because in the next corners he will be the fastest line, because in the last one, if you are on outside, you have the fastest line. So I was happy after the first one. In the second, well, I really didn't know what to do because I didn't try to do fuel saving, and I really didn't know what was the right strategy to do. In the first laps, I tried to do a very fast recovery position on the field, because I was wishing the train will split into wagons, and Adam should be in the second one, and me in the first one. But it didn't work. Then I really was looking at what Adam was doing, because when you are against a so strong driver, you have to watch a team. And I really wasn't understanding if he was trying to save fuel or not. But finally, I thought, well, I have to push, and finally we'll see what will happen. So I pushed so hard. Fortunately, I had the car that helped me to go a little bit faster than being alone on the track. But we are only two cars, while Nathan, Adam, and the others were in a bigger pack. So I was not sure how was my pace, but I tried to push almost until my fuel finished. And then I did again a mistake in the pits, because I went too far, and I had to put the reverse gear to go in my correct place, and I think I lost at least 4 seconds. And I was not able to really understand how I was exiting the pit in front of Adam and Nathan, because I did some mistakes. So I tried to push till the end, and unfortunately I punted from behind Paul Mitras, because I misjudged his speed entering in the turn one. So I'm very sorry for that. But yeah, for the final laps, well, I was pushing very hard as in the first one, and when I saw I had a gap with the train in the last two laps, again I pushed as hard as possible, risking to die every corner, because I really didn't want to let Adam catch me, and finally I did it, and I'm so happy.
Oh, indeed. And we saw you pushing hard on that second stint. And when Adam and Nathan Wade started to battle one another quite hard, it almost as if you responded to that by immediately trying to put in the best possible laps. The gap started to rise up, and then it got to 1.8 seconds. And I suspect at that point, a smile might have started creeping onto your face.
Yeah, because well, if you are alone here, it's very difficult to be faster than a car pack. No, they can help each other with the draft. You are alone, so you have to be very fast, but you clean, because you have. To be gentle without letting the car sliding too much, in order to keep the momentum of the car, and wishing in some mistakes from other cars, swapping the position or battling each other. Well, I really knew that Nathan didn't want to let Adam wins, so probably he helped me a little bit, making him going slower, but I think it was a good job from him, but a really good job from me, because I had one chance and I got it.
Oh, indeed, and coming across the finish line, nailing the win to history in the series. And I have to ask, how did it feel when you took the checkered flag?
Well, I really, the truth is that I could not believe it. I was watching at laps to go, and I was not sure that was the final lap. So I was searching with my eyes the checkered flag, and when I saw the checkered flag, finally I said, "Well, okay, it's the last lap. I can wiggle over the finish line." So. I don't know how to say, but I was very, very, very happy. The only bad thing is that I rear-ended Paul Smitros. I think I did almost 2 perfect races, and that's the only thing that make me a little bit sad.
Well, indeed, and understandable, you do feel a little bit of sadness about that, but still another one to learn from, and all the happiness from today as well. And 2 more rounds on the way to the end of the championship. We've got Virginia International Raceway next week, and you're in with a shot of 3rd place in the championship.
I don't know. I think, but well, if is it possible, I will try to do it. The problem is that there is a track I like so much, but is as said Geoff before, is a very technical circuit with so narrow road. You can go too wide, but it's very risky, and you can go off track. You have to keep focus all the race, and you have to be aggressive, but not too much. So I think I have to train a little bit more next week, because I'm not sure I can remember well all the secrets of Virginia.
Oh, indeed, and we look forward to see you rise to the challenge of Virginia in a week's time, Enzo. But just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yes, thank you for the chance. As always, my team, Mivano Sim Racing, Fabio Mantellini, my team manager, all my friends, all the drivers, and my new friends I have met in this new skippy season. And as always, congratulations to you for your incredible work. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to look, watch at the broadcast after this interview.
Well, Enzo, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your double podium and your first win of the season in the round 22 feature, and we look forward to seeing you out of the circuit in the season finale next week.
Yeah, thank you so much. See you next week.
Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
So hearing there from Enzo Cantor from SRC Movano Racing, absolutely ecstatic, and already the beer flying, and you can understand why. I can tell you one thing, if his interview does not put a big cheesy grin on your face, I don't know what will, but there reflected what has been an absolutely solid day of racing, with the fact P4 in qualifying not working out the way he expected it to after leaving the pit lane with a speeding penalty, and then having to come back out, but working with Jack Atkinson. And we can see Atkinson at the back of the pack here with the camera focused on Enzo Cantor, understandably so. But the key point being he worked with Atkinson to put himself on the 2nd row of the grid, and from that point onwards he didn't let off. Charging after a potential win in the sprint race, but Adam Miles battling with him side by side on the final lap all the way round, and Miles bringing home the win. But in the feature, he charged to the front of the field early and then managed the race. And despite having a misstop in terms of missing his pit box time to reverse back into it, given a second opportunity with the fact he was able to come out of the back of the pack and chase after leaders and come home the winner, fight his way through and benefiting from what was Miles and Wade battling one another for P2. But you've got to be in the lead to take the checker flag, and that's exactly what Enzo Cantor did at a very hotly contested final race of the day. And we look forward to seeing how he gets on in the season finale next week, because there could be an outside chance of P3 in the championship championship, albeit he's got a lot to do if he wants to be able to achieve it, and he will need a minimum of 2 podiums and for results to go his way versus his rivals, but we'll have to wait and see. But now coming on to our final interview of this evening, it's going to be none other than second place driver in the championship. And still in the championship hunt, it's Adam Miles in the number 85. And as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we're going to hear his perspective shortly on what has been a great day for Miles. And it does mean now that it's going to go down to the wire after what has been 22 rounds of racing. And it will all come down to 2 more races in Virginia. But enough about the future. Let's talk about the here and now and get him into the interview room, and he does join me now.
Yes.
And as we say, good evening to Adam. Well, Adam, it has been a challenging day, but one that you've risen to the test of Watkins Glen. But I hate to say first, a win streak of 12 wins finally comes to an end, albeit a championship that's still very much alive.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to come to an end at some point. I felt a little bit lucky that it has gone on as long as it had. So, of all the tracks on the calendar, this one was probably always going to be the most difficult one to get a pair of wins at, because you just can't drive away from anyone. So you just trying to put yourself in the right place at the right time, and there's a healthy dose of luck winning here. And so I can fully accept that. My win in the first race was not all skill. It's a lot of avoiding incidents and just putting yourself in third on the right lap and just hoping people don't block you. So yeah, I'm happy overall, but not too disappointed that with a P1 and P2.
Oh, indeed. Plenty to be happy about. And starting with qualifying, third place on the grid going into our races for today. It was always going to be close given the focus of slipstream in qualifying. But with a second row start, were you too displeased or pleased with that?
I mean, there's only 1 point up for grabs for pole, and I mean, it's a very drafty qualifying session. I didn't get the greatest draft off anyone. There was a bit of a weird sort of checkup. We all came out the pits initially. There was some people weaving around, slow cars, and I hit Enzo, I think, and went over into the wall. So I had to reset back to the pits, which only cost me 20 seconds, but it sort of just put me in a bit of a no man's land, really. I wasn't up with Nathan or Enzo or anyone like that. So P3 was fine. In fact, I thought I could turn a P3 into P1 by the halfway through lap 1, because you get such a mega draft down. So I wasn't too disappointed. Just a single point was probably not going to make the difference, but I'll eat my words if at the end of next week I lose by a point.
Oh, goodness me. Well, let's not foreshadow what could come in 2 weeks' time. But coming on to the sprint race, starting from the second row of the grid and finding yourself batting for the win all the way through the 20 minutes. And then coming down to a side-by-side battle between yourself and Enzo Cantor over pretty much the entirety of the final lap.
Yep. Yeah. I think I wasn't in the greatest position, to be honest. Coming down the straight, I sort of got boxed in the middle. I know Enzo was up there. I think maybe it was Ryan on the right, and then Jeff and Nathan on the left, and I was kind of just stuck in the middle. And then I saw out the corner of my eye Nathan sort of twitch. I think he touched the back of Enzo, which sort of caused a kind of cascading crash. And so then I think without that I could have probably been P4 or P5, just boxed in there. But with them off to one side, I think I ended up P3 up to about P2 by the end of that sort of sweeping long right-hander. So tried to just hang it round the outside of Enzo, so got myself on the left-hand side, which is really where you want to be through the final corner. So I set that up maybe 4 or 5 corners before the end of the lap, and just had to make sure he didn't get the clear left call to sort of switch back to the left-hand side, because I had the side of the track that I wanted. And then coming through the last corner, there's a bit of camber there, so the outside line really gives you good speed. And then I made a little bit of a mistake. I'm glad it didn't change the outcome of the race. I sort of swept off of the wall to try and grab Enzo's side draft, but ended up bumping into him slightly. But I think ultimately I probably had the speed and the overlap to get to the line first anyway. I don't think it materially slowed any of us down. So I'll take a win by 200ths of a second, and then move on to the next one.
Oh, indeed, and minor margins. And I have to ask, in the on the final lap of the sprint race, with in fact over the entirety of the race, with you being arguably the one with more to lose in the championship versus Wade, does that change the way you approach those battles down the straights where it's 3 or 4 wide, and then you've also got cars coming up behind and cars in front as well?
Yeah, I was thinking about this all the way through the race. Am I making the right balance between, going forwards and not taking too many risks? Because I knew probably I need to get, as it turns out, sort of wins and P2s at least in the last few races, and so I can't afford to just let myself drop back to P4 or P5. But likewise, all it takes is a tap of a wheel, a little wiggle, and I'm in the barrier, and then it's absolutely all over. So I think I erred on the side of aggressive, just because the only way to win the championship was to get sort of 80 plus points in this one, and hope Nathan had a drop round, and so it turned out to be.
Well, indeed, and coming on to the feature race, we saw a bit of a dramatic start. You in the P10 position off the line and making your way away, quite static in your position, but finding that the pack started to split into 2.
Yeah. I can't remember how we split. There was a sort of it was about a 2-second gap, I think, initially. But there was such a big pack up front that I thought that they're not going to be running 205s. They're not going to be forming up in a single line and doing this cleanly. So I think that I can't remember who I was with, but I think there was the body language of the cars was let's work together, and we just clawed our way back in a couple of laps, and so no one got away early doors.
Well, indeed, and focusing on working together with those around you, including the likes of Chris Wayne, after the incident which saw, I do believe, Neil Gardner and Juan Rodriguez out of the race. Pit stop comes up, you emerge from the pit lane, and much like at Detroit last week, you emerge side by side with your championship rival.
Yeah, I was surprised, to be honest, because I made a rare pit stop error. I got into my box and overshot by a couple of feet. The lollipop came through my head, and I got too far forward, so I had to stick it in reverse, back up, and then start taking the fuel. So it cost me probably about 2 seconds, I would say, just to get it in reverse, back into first, and start the fueling. So I think without that, I would have been obviously 2 seconds further down the road. Whether it would have made any difference, I don't know. We'll never know. If the pack behind had worked together, maybe they could have caught me up anyway. But it pains me a little bit that I made that mistake. But ultimately, it might have made no difference to the race result anyway.
Oh, indeed, and with that mistake, having to then try and fend off Nathan Wade, but at the same time closing in Ryan Jackson. But then Enzo Cantor once again comes out of left field to try and take the lead off of you.
Yeah, at the end of the race is a little bit blurry. I remember, yes, Ryan was up ahead. I felt like I knew what Nathan was going to do, and he confirmed as much when we chatted briefly after the race. He didn't want me to win. Naturally, that's what he would want, and so I think whenever a car got away at the front, he was happier if we fought and slowed each other down. It would just mean I would get less points, and so perfectly valid thing to want to do. But we reeled in Ryan Jackson. I think I led a lap just towards the end there, but then, to be honest, I can't remember how Enzo ended up ahead. But I remember him being about 1.5 seconds ahead, and Nathan just sort of didn't give us the chance to run him down. So ended up fighting a lot with Nathan. It was all very clean and a lot of fun.
100%, and we loved every moment of it from the commentary booth. And with the P1 and P2 today, it means the championship battle goes on to the season finale at Virginia International Raceway in a week's time. You still got the Goliath task of trying to turn things around from the challenging position, but how are you feeling for the final 2 rounds of the season?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to them. I mean, I've given myself a chance, and I think 5 or 6 rounds ago, 12 or 13 races ago, I knew I'd missed 3 rounds, and it was not really a thing that I was thinking about. But as the wins racked up, it at least looked possible. So I mean, it's in Nathan's hands ultimately. I can put it on pole and win both races, but all he needs to do is really sort of a double P2 or a P2, P3, something like that. So, you know, I might have to play games of my own next week. Try and, if we break away P1 and P2, I need to slow us down and bring an Enzo Cantor in or a Jeff Randall and try and get them between me and him. So, yeah, looking forward to some tactics, and hopefully it's a clean race. I don't want to see Nathan sort of get spun out of a race or anything like that. So, looking forward to 2 clean races, and yeah, let's finish it on track.
Well, indeed, we look forward to the pair of you battling for the championship crown in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Adam, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
I think it's going to have to go to Enzo this week. I'm really happy for him to take the win out in the feature race there. He drove a very smart race. Her phases there where I was trying to run down him and Ryan couldn't do it. They worked together well. He must have had a good pit stop. And so, yeah, congratulations to him, and fingers crossed he doesn't win another round in the rest of the season, but I'm really happy he did.
Well, I'm sure he'll appreciate your kind words, Adam, but with that, congratulations on your results today. Thank you for joining me in the interview room, and we look forward to seeing you out of the circuit for the season finale next week.
Thank you, Paul.
Have a great evening. So hearing there from Adam Miles, the 85 privateer, who are making it a run of podium finishes in each session this evening, where it be the P3 in qualifying, the win in the sprint, or the second place of the feature. It does bring to a close his run of 12 wins back-to-back, and, well, it had to come to a close at some time in his own words, and perhaps this was always going to be the place where it was going to come to a close, with the racing being so slipstream intensive, but still almost making it double wins. And in the sprint race, managing the run up to the front of the field very well, and then placing himself tactically in the right place at the right time to be able to find his way past Enzo Cantor to the line. 200ths of the difference between the Briton and the Italian at the checker flag. And then going into the feature race, even when the field split, able to catch back up to the lead pack. And even with the split of strategies, emerging from the pit lane side by side, as we've just seen on the replay footage here, with his championship rival Nathan Wade, and missing his pit box. Rare mistake there, but losing a couple of seconds. And even if he'd been able to hit his pit box, he would have been further up towards Ryan Jackson. We don't know what could have been, but we do know it is the reality we're seeing today, and that is that Adam Miles has given himself an opportunity to snatch the championship crown away from Nathan Wade in the season finale. He will need perfection to do it and for Wade to drop points, but anything could happen, like we've seen here at Watkins Glen International. And will it be Wade or Miles who is your champion for the championship for 2023? We'll all see that in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is the end of our interviews. So thank you to all 4 of our drivers who volunteered to interview today. They have included Adam Miles, the number 85 privateer who we've just heard from, and previously Enzo Cantor from SRC Movano Racing in the 77. We also heard from Godskipping Racing's 107, the driver of Jeff Randall, and also the privateer of Nathan Wade, the number 24, our championship leader. And then that championship is still in his control, but he'll need to make it his firmly when we go to Virginia International Raceway. But congratulations to all 4 of them for their performances, and thank you to them for joining me in the interview room. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for tuning in, and if you want to know more about the Skip Barber Challenge Trophy in terms of the series format, the community, or anything else in between, we do welcome you to join the official Discord, link available on screen. And indeed, whilst we may be at the end of the championship, we've got plenty more planned for the remainder of 2023 and also going into 2024, and we'll give you an update on that specifically at the end of next week's broadcast. You'll definitely want to tune into that one if you want to be on the grid for a future rendition of Skippy-based racing. But also, we'd like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, and they are for this series Musical Money. Their website, musical-money.co.uk, and Musical Money is the quick, easy and safe way to turn your musical equipment into money. So if you like the sound of that tune, then make sure to go to www.musical-money.co.uk. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be the finale we've all been wanting to see for next time. It'll be rounds 23 and 24. Set the date in your calendars. It's Friday, the 2nd of June, 2023, and it will be at the VIR circuit where it goes down to 2 drivers. Championship leader Nathan Wade has it firmly in his grasp, whereby he does not need to achieve the maximum number of points in order to become our champion. He just just needs to score well and prevent his rival Adam Miles from achieving perfection. Meanwhile, at the other end of the spectrum, Miles will need to nail it, picking up as many points as possible and make the racing go all the way. But how will it work out in practice, and who of the two will be our champion? We'll find out in a week's time. But until then, we have been Godskipping Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, have a fantastic weekend, and remember to stay on track. Good night.